All right, hello and welcome to the Rebellious Noise Pro Wrestling channel. Apologies for the delay in the start of the stream. We've had a bit of a mad one there with some technical difficulties with the service that we are using. So we are live now. Let's hope it doesn't drop out or anything like that. It seems like there's a lot of people going live at the moment, not just talking wrestling, of course, talking Euros. There's a lot going on in the world at the moment. So let's hope we can stay online. Never had to say that before, but here we are. We are live talking pro wrestling once again. We are talking again about another WWE PLE here in the UK, of course, in Scotland this time with Clash at the Castle 2. So here we are for the build-up show. We are going to be showing our preview and predictions from earlier on in the week, and then I'm going to be joined later on by some very special guests for the live portion of this show. And then after that, and after the show has gone off the air itself, as in the PLE itself, we are going to have the instant reaction review to Clash at the Castle. And once again, hopefully some special guests there as well. Let's just run down the card very quickly before we do get into the predictions. We've got quite a lot of Scottish wrestlers going on here on the card here. We've got Piper Niven going up against Bayley for WWE Women's title. We've got Sami Zayn defending the Intercontinental title. And that's against Chad Gable. Of course, we've got WWE title on the line. Cody Rhodes defending against AJ Styles. And then we've got Alba Fire and Isla Dawn. We've got Cargill and Belair. Then Zoe Starks and Shayna Baszler, of course, in this triple threat tag team title match for the women's tag titles. And of course, the big one really, Drew McIntyre. Can he do it in the UK, win the World Heavyweight title against Damian Priest, like he, of course, didn't manage to do a while ago when we had the first Clash at the Castle, which we were privileged enough to be in attendance for as well. Now, as you can see, I'm not at Clash today, but that's all right. It means I can join you for a little bit longer as well. But what we're going to do before we do get into my thoughts and predictions on this, and I do bring in special guests, is we are going to run it back to earlier this week, just from a few days ago, actually, from Dan and Lucas's original predictions. So if you haven't seen those already, stick around. And in about an hour's time, I'll be coming back live and again, bringing in some special guests at that as well. So stick with us and check out what Dan and Lucas had to say about Clash.
Hello, hello, hello. It is Dan here from the Rebellious Noise Pro Wrestling channel. And I'm joined by Lucas, no Scott and no Rob, unfortunately. And we are here to talk all things Clash at the Castle, Scotland. Ironically, a place where there is a castle, but in a totally different town, in Edinburgh. But this is going to be Clash at the Castle, Scotland, and we will be back with our predictions right after this message.
Welcome to the Rebellious Noise Pro Wrestling channel. On this channel, we bring you some great content from inside and outside of the squared circle. We will go through and offer some in-depth analysis of the biggest events of the year, as well as bringing you exclusive interviews with some of the industry's biggest names. There will also be live show reviews, in-depth features, and podcasts. So make sure you give that subscribe button a slam so you don't miss any of the action.
Hello, hello, hello. Once again, I am Dan, joined by Lucas, and we are here to talk Clash at the Castle, Scotland.
There we are.
We are, and we are gonna be starting off by singing "Flower of Scotland," the national anthem.
Oh God, no,
we're not.
We've got enough of Scotland this week, haven't we? With the Euros and everything.
Yeah, we will be. Yeah, it's weird. Yeah, so Drew McIntyre will hopefully go in to it a very happy Scotsman if Scotland beat Germany in the Euros. But yeah, so we are going to be talking all things Clash at the Castle, as we mentioned previously. Do you want to give the people just a little brief overview on what's happening?
So we've got 5 matches currently announced. As we can imagine, if it follows the same tradition as their previous PLEs, it does seem to be that 5 or 6 is kind of the sweet spot for a pay-per-view nowadays. I've got a lot more to say on this, but obviously today just to let you know, guys, we are going to keep today's one as brief as possible. With WWE pay-per-views, they tend to like change things up quite a lot throughout the week, and we don't want to kind of divulge too much kind of thought process on things that may just change as the week progresses, as we know so well. So we will be keeping this quite short for today. But yeah, it does seem that 5 or 6 is the sweet spot that they have, and we are at 5 matches, and they are all championship matches as well, which is another.
Yeah, they are, aren't they?
Yeah, another kind of gripe I kind of have nowadays with the current thing, because there's so many championships as there is. But
Did they not do United Champions or something recently, or something like that?
Don't know, no, because no, they haven't done one in ages, have they? But this is basically maybe the replacement. We've got some interesting ones though. In saying that, as we do have like an I Quit match, we have a main event where it's an interesting one, similarly to the Chamber pay-per-view, where obviously Rhea Ripley went in as a villain, but at the Chamber, as it was her hometown, she became the babyface, and she won. But it does the same thing happen now with like Drew McIntyre. Like, he is very much the villain on WWE television. But this show is in his hometown. Does he become the babyface in this de facto feud that's going on in what should be the main event? I say should be, as obviously NXT last week, I felt that, and many people felt actually that the match between Roxanne Perez and Jordan Grace would be that show's main event, or even the underground match, considering they were in the UFC Apex.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, they
neither
could have done something there.
Yeah, neither match ended up main eventing, but the men did for the NXT Championship. So
I've just noticed something very interesting, actually. So just quickly looking on WWE.com, they've still got, so it says Clash at the Castle, but they're still using the graphic for the Wales one, because it's all still the Wales colours. Obviously, the actual like match graphics themselves have the proper one on.
That's very interesting. It'd be even more interesting, I guess, next year. Like, if they decide to do it again, like, do they continue it? They find other places that have got castles in like 100-mile radius or something.
I think it's
Castle London, I guess, because there is what is it? Is it Leeds Castle? Isn't it in Kent?
Leeds Castle that's in Kent. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's a bit strange though, considering obviously that they've got Edinburgh Castle, obviously.
Yes.
But for some reason, they're not doing the match in Edinburgh. They're not doing the show in Edinburgh, which is the place in Scotland with the castle.
and also the bigger city out of the two.
Capital city of Scotland. I mean, a lot of people probably think that Glasgow is, but
or Glasgow.
Yeah, it's weird. Yeah, Glasgow, Scotland, and Edinburgh, Scotland, as I heard it referred to today.
I mean, I can only imagine it's due to cost. I mean, Edinburgh is a very, very expensive city.
Yeah.
And I think WWE, they do just seem to go where the money is. And potentially they could be using this one as testing the waters and seeing if there is appetite. And again, this is, look, guys, I know people obviously may be watching for different reasons, but I think obviously there's more that we can kind of divulge upon. We do have a build-up show for this event on Saturday. As obviously we like to take advantage of the fact that this is airing at a respectable time for us here in Blighty. And we'll have the live build-up. I don't know, time to be confirmed. You can check our social media page for this. But when on that show, Scott, Rob, and myself, most likely, maybe joined by a couple of guests, we will kind of divulge and go through kind of a lot of the stuff that potentially people want to hear about our opinions on, such as the incredibly expensive ticket prices, the fact that
we could literally be sitting here for hours talking about that.
Yeah, but I'm saying to people that's what we will be discussing more on Saturday, as well as obviously some of our thoughts we've had in our group chat regarding the current kind of booking formula it seems that Triple H is falling into for the pay-per-view. So if you like, obviously, kind of this kind of like a taster, it's a amuse-bouche kind of discussion, then join us on Saturday evening for fuller discussion and most likely a recap or instant review after the last bell. Instant reaction, there we are. I changed the name of it.
you knew that the word instant or reaction or something was in there somewhere, but
but that'll be after the pay-per-view, and again, we don't know how long it'll be. Hello, Fart Night. Is that because Fortnite was taken? I want to say in '69 at the end. I mean,
unless they're Irish, Fart Night
might be. Is there a castle in Ireland?
I don't know, but yeah, they just need to pick places with castles. But yeah, I mean, I'm honestly surprised though. Like, just going back to like the Edinburgh thing, even the Glasgow thing, I think where WWE kind of, I would say, messed things up a little bit is the fact that they're using a 12,000 seat venue in Glasgow when you've got obviously Hampden Park, Celtic Park, Ibrox, all with like 50, 60,000 seats. Now, I get the reasoning is obviously it's Scotland. It could pour of rain any time. Like, we are in June now and we've had about 3 seasons just today alone. Like, it's been sunny, raining, everything today. And we're in England, obviously. But then, I don't know, it's just, surely there must be some provision, like, because the literally only stadium in the UK with a roof is the Principality Stadium.
Yeah, in the stadium. Yeah, it's very baffling that they don't think of these things through. I mean, even the new Wembley, lovely venue but no roof.
Well, they did. I mean, because they kind of missold it to people because they're like, oh yeah, it's got a retractable roof. Yeah, it's got a retractable roof to keep the fans keep the fans that are sitting in there. Yeah, it's like, surely a retractable roof is the whole thing is like, yeah. But anyway, we can get into that for ages.
I'm checking the forecast for Glasgow, and Friday is rain and Saturday is cloudy. Sunday's also rain, so it would be interesting if they were running it this week with that weather forecast. Someone told me there'd be a lot of wet seats in the stadium. If it did rain the night before. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, let's get to the meat and gravy, I guess.
Right. So now Michael Fisher's finished with the weather. We'll move on to the predictions. Where shall we start? Shall we go with? Let's go with the Intercontinental title. Sami Zayn defending against Chad Gable. Now, do you want to go first for this, or do you want me I can go first if you want?
You go first. I spoke quite a lot in the intro bit.
Okay, so Sami and Chad. So Chad Gable recently has re-signed with WWE. I believe a big part of that, personally, I feel, was that they are going to put the Intercontinental title on him. I think that Chad is going to be leaving Clash at the Castle as your new Intercontinental champion. I think it was kind of always in the back of their minds to make Chad the IC champion, even when Gunther was still champ. So, yeah, that's my thinking behind it. And I think this whole thing with the Alpha Academy, I think it's eventually going to have the Alpha Academy turning on Chad, or the other way around, and it turned into Chad and the Creed brothers potentially, as like the new kind of team angle kind of thing. So you know how it's like the world's greatest tag team angle, that kind of stuff. I think it'll be more like that with the Creeds and Chad, rather than how it currently is with Chad, Otis, and Tozawa. So yeah, my pick: Chad Gable, new Intercontinental champion.
Yeah, I mean, I spoke very openly on the WrestleMania stream we did that I think that they fumbled this. Obviously, I thought the match between Gunther and Sami Zayn was fantastic, one of the highlights of the whole weekend, but I just think that was Gable's spot. And I think this is going to be a bang of a match, though.
100%.
I mean, a potential match of the night, I'm going to be honest. I think we'll get some stuff later on with the World Championship matches.
I think it all depends on. I think this one as well depends on card placement, because if you're having this open the show, then like I would say, how are you going to follow it? Like, I would not want to. I would any place this is on the card. I would not want to follow it. Put it that way.
It's going to be a bang or a match. But I also think, like you, I think it surely if Chad Gable steps aside at WrestleMania. Not step aside, not he chose to step aside, I guess. But if that the whole thinking, I think, was he knew that he has some leverage post WrestleMania. to negotiate this kind of thing with his contract being up, in June. And also, I just think the whole story, like, I don't really watch the weeklies that much, but I watch bits and pieces. But it's got the whole story with the Alpha Academy and Chad and, what he's done with Sami. I think that's a really good part of the product. And I think ultimately he deserves a lot of credit for that. And he deserves a lot of credit for making Gunther's reign like massively important. The match he had with Gunther on Raw, the night that Gunther was breaking the record, bonkers as that sounds, it was fantastic. And it is long overdue for Chad Gable, long overdue.
Yeah.
I remember King of the Ring that King Corbin won, what was it, 2019? He won so. By last defeating Chad Gable. Like, that was when he was ready for this push, 5 years ago. So he's been ready for ages. But yeah, I think Chad Gable will be leaving as the new champion. And I think we might see a bit of dissension between Chad and Otis, potentially. But I don't know if they'll pull the trigger on the big turn just yet.
Yeah.
Save that for next month or further down the line. And then, I'm with you, with Chad Gable leading a new stable with the Creed brothers.
It could lead to like Chad and Otis for the title at SummerSlam potentially. That could be a
way. I think again, Otis is very underrated.
Again, that is another one that will be an absolute bang. Like, something about this Intercontinental title, it's just like to take something from Sheamus. They just put on banger after banger after banger when that Intercontinental title is on the line.
True.
So
it's true.
And ironically, Sheamus, the man who says banger after banger after banger, has never won the Intercontinental title. So, maybe we'll see that down the line as well. So, yeah, if you're watching Triple H, give Sheamus his Grand Slam.
Yeah, he deserves it.
Yeah. Right. So let's now move on to the second match. I'm deliberately doing these in a specific order, and you'll see why afterwards. So the next match we are going to have is an I Quit match between Cody Rhodes and AJ Styles. AJ looks really possessed in that.
Doesn't it?
He's trying to be the Undertaker or something. Looks like he's trying to roll his eyes back. But yeah, Cody Rhodes defending the WWE Undisputed title. Yeah, it is just the undisputed WWE title now against AJ Styles in an I Quit match. I guess floor is yours for this one.
Now, this is an interesting one because it's almost like they paused the AJ and Cody feud, but this does feel very ad-libby. Like, obviously, AJ Styles and Cody Rhodes was a 5-star match according to Dave Meltzer at Backlash in France. It was a fantastic. I think it was a very, very good match. I don't rate these matches like that, but he, and the reception of it was very good. And one would imagine that AJ Styles, he's definitely got more days behind him than he has had more days behind him than he has ahead of him, I guess. But yeah. I think obviously there is that retirement talk and that retirement tease that is going to happen at some point. Like, we are definitely counting down. And I'd like to think this is like a reward, so to speak, for him obviously doing so well, in that match. Because it's very weird, very rare that they do a pause of a feud. Because obviously, AJ Styles just took a back seat for the whole month, let Cody Rhodes feud with Logan Paul, to now resume this. Though also you could argue, with the Saudi money and things coming, I think it could have just been a coincidence that that's just how it's worked out. The Saudis wanted that match over this match. Now, this is a hard one because, it feels like Cody's reign's only just getting started. But there is a part of me that feels like Cody might actually be better off losing the championship quite soon. The reason being is because if The Rock is going to be coming back and wants his match with Cody Rhodes, that match does not need to be the championship. And so if they're going to do that, and the rumours are as soon as potentially SummerSlam or Survivor Series, you may as well take the belt off Cody now and have him start his long build back up to it.
It's going to be winner takes all, isn't it? People's Championship versus
Rock's
WWE Championship,
Because, but then obviously the problem with that is obviously, you're kind of already going to cheapen that big moment that happens. But I think the problem is that Cody losing the belt is never going to be as big a moment as Cody winning it.
Yeah.
And no matter what you do, is always going to annoy some people. And, there are some people that could pipe up and say, well, why doesn't The Rock beat Cody Rhodes for the championship? That's a massive moment. But is The Rock going to be wrestling even more than one more time after that? Like, most likely not.
Probably WrestleMania next year against Roman, and that's probably going to be
That's probably it. The guy's in his 50s, doesn't need the money.
To be honest, that might even be the thing of, if you beat, like, winner takes all. Like, if you beat me, then you'll be like the true, like, head of the table, tribal chief, and you take my career, basically.
Yeah.
Like,
but I don't think any of that needs a championship.
No. Like, but I think as well, that was everyone's big kind of thing for this year. It's like, if it was solely Rock and Roman, no one would have batted an eyelid. But the minute that they were going to be doing it for the championship, everyone was just like, oh.
I think we've seen this happen so many times before, haven't we? With Goldberg.
Yeah, it's like, I don't know why the part-timers will come back and instantly, like, because the thing is, if it would be like a legitimate gripe if you were there week in, week out, and then somebody just randomly comes in, having been away for years and years, even though it is one of the biggest names in the industry, and they just get a title shot. It's like, well, what have they done apart from their name? What have they done to earn a title shot?
Yeah. I mean, and hopefully that's it's a trope that hopefully people are hoping that Triple H is kind of getting out of from the company as a whole.
I mean, to be honest, if he was medically cleared, he would have been WWE champion by now.
But in saying all that, even though I think Cody may need to lose a championship, I don't think it's going to be AJ Styles. I don't think, there's no... Look, AJ has had a phenomenal career inside wrestling and will go down as one of the all-time greats. And he's also had an all-time, run in WWE. Whether... there've been some times we had been underutilized. I get that. But I think ultimately you're looking at someone who is a Grand Slam holder and has kind of done everything he needs to do. I don't think that him losing here will have any effect on people still discussing that he's obviously had a good run here. And I don't also see anything going forward if they were to do the change with AJ Styles as champion, other than just a bounce back to Cody, which would make this silly. I just think it would devalue the championship at this point and that important win. But I do see Cody losing the belt. It's coming. But I will go with him not losing this time, as this is kind of his kind of big championship moment, big kind of win. Like they used to give to Cena all the time, when he was champion, he'd have a feud and it would pay off in these kind of matches, whether it was I Quit or Last Man Standing or Street Fight or something like that. It's that kind of big definitive win that a babyface needs. And I think that they'll have a bang of a match, but I believe that the person who will still be the undisputed champion will be Cody Rhodes.
Yeah, I mean, I pretty much echo what you're saying. I think Cody will lose the title. I think rather sooner rather than later. I know Triple H seemingly is a fan of these longer title reigns, but I think Cody is better chasing. I feel. But yeah, and then like you say, I agree with you that I think Cody is still going to come out of this one as your undisputed WWE champion. So yeah. Not really much more to add for that one, to be honest. That was, Cody and AJ. So we're now going to get into the 3 matches that involve the Scottish participants. So that's why I'm doing it this way. So the first one we are going to go with is the triple threat tag team match, which features the tag team champions Jade Cargill and Bianca Belair defending the titles against the team of Shayna Baszler and Zoe Stark and the team of Alba Fire and Isla Dawn. Almost said Kaylee Ray then, but obviously
not in a long while.
One of the longest reigning, was it WWE Women's UK champions ever?
Yeah, well, I think just in terms of women's championships, I think she's held that. No, it's up there, I guess.
Was it you that sat down that spoke with her, or Scott? It was one of you. Scott, yes, Scott actually did an interview with us back over on the Rebellious Noise page, Kaylee Ray. Well, when she was Kaylee Ray, but yeah, there's also interviews with a load of other WWE superstars there, including Scotland's own Drew McIntyre and, as she was then, Doudrop, now Piper Niven, and her opponent. We'll get into that in a little while. But yeah, we have got a triple threat tag team match here for the tag titles. It flips back round to me now. All right. So let's go. Pros and cons of everyone. So pros and cons. Pros for Bianca and Jade winning. They're a dominant team. It's giving Jade Cargill some good reps as well, which is good. Pros for Alba Fire and Isla Dawn. It's their home country. They'll get a massive pop if they win.
Yeah.
Pretty much. Zoe Stark, Shayna Baszler, I think that if this wasn't in Scotland, I think that's what the match that they would have done. So I think that they're only putting Alba Fire and Isla Dawn in there because it's Scotland. And the reason Shayna and Zoe, I feel, are in there is for one of them to take the pinfall, so that if there's a title change, then Bianca or Jade don't have to get pinned.
Mm-hmm.
And if Bianca and Jade retain, then they don't have to pin the Scottish people. So, you know, there's not going to be that, oh, boo, you pinned the hometown heroes kind of thing. But yeah, it's a tricky one, because I think it is, like, I'm completely going to rule out Baszler and Stark from this one. So I think they're just there to take the fall. One of them. So, I mean, I think it could be one of these, like you said, with like the Cody thing, where they put it on Alba Fire and Isla Dawn just to then bounce it back to Bianca and Jade. So they do it for the pop and then bounce back. Do I? You know what? I'm going to say that. That's what I'm going to risk it. Like, I think they're going to have Alba and Isla win the titles, and then even if it's on like SmackDown or something next week, just have Bianca and Jade like beat them and do the whole like, oh, you never pinned us for the titles, blah blah blah. It leads to like that rematch and yada yada. So that's what I think Alba Fire and Isla Dawn will come out as your new women's tag team champions.
Interesting. See, the hometown rule
it was a 50-50 though, that one, to be fair, for me.
Yeah, I don't know. The hometown rule kind of matters anymore as much to them, it seems.
Well, Vince wouldn't care, but Triple H, I think, you know.
I think sometimes the reward is the match, though. Do you know what I mean? Like, I think the chance to perform in front of their hometown crowd is like the reward here. Do you know what I mean? Like, do they? Because again, it just feels very soon, like for this. The only good thing is, I'm with you in thinking that if it was in Scotland, that they would just do a traditional 2-on-2. You know, with Cargill and Belair facing Stark and Baszler. Now, Baszler as well, I'm getting concerned about here because, you know, she lost in NXT Underground. She seems to lose every single match on Raw.
So do you think they'll have Zoe take the pin then?
Yeah, but even her, like, again, there might be more discussion, you know, with someone like Scott or Rob, but if you think about how high she was, you know, back at Payback last year, you know, being the kind of apprentice, like kind of accomplice to, you know, Trish Stratus in that amazing cage match that she had with Becky. And then obviously, you know, turning her back on her mentor.
And just kind of that Elimination Chamber performance as well.
Yeah.
I can't remember what year that was, but yeah, that Elimination Chamber performance was just incredible.
Yeah, you just think, how have we kind of got to a situation where like she's still not able to do bits? And part of it might be because they haven't got a women's mid-card belt, to be fair, because it feels like if you're not in a, you know, if you're not facing one of the champions,
yeah, you're gonna have to
just lose everyone else.
I mean, this has been one of the things, like, for a number of years though in WWE. It's like, you know, what do they do with the women that are not fighting for the main title? And
Mm.
that was always the kind of people's main kind of concern, because obviously the men would have had the Intercontinental and US titles to fight over.
Yeah.
It's like, what is there for the women? Like,
Yeah.
I think they could.
Tough one.
I mean, I reckon by the end of the year potentially, because I think they're trialing it seemingly with the NXT Women's North American Championship.
Yeah.
Congratulations to Kalani Jordan, the first ever WWE Women's North American Champion. Yeah, I think they're going to see that as a tester and see if it works. Then potentially a women's Intercontinental and a women's US title. Yeah, I mean, I think it's something fans have been crying out for years, especially when like the whole women's thing, and I think especially now Triple H has gone down this whole thing of like uniforming the belts as well. So like the world title and the WWE women's title, rather than this whole Raw and SmackDown red and blue stuff. I think it's kind of trying to make it more like more of like an even playing field, and it's like the only distinction really is one's got the word women in, one's got the word not got the word men in, but one's got the word women in and a white strap, one's got is held by a man, and it's got a black strap. So it's I think eventually though they will introduce this women's mid-card title. But sorry, back to your point of the prediction.
Yes, I'm with you in thinking that it's not going to be Baszler and Stark.
Yeah.
And that I would have felt that Bianca and Jay would have retained if it was a 2-on-2, against them two. And I can see.
It's a tough one, isn't it, to kind of pick, because they could do it either way, really.
But I think because I've predicted already the IC Championship changing hands, I think I'll play it safe with this one. I'm going to say that Bianca Belair and Jay Cargill will retain, most likely by pinning Zoe Stark. I mean, the Smack. This is why it's annoying doing it now as well, because the SmackDown for me is a big telltale. Like, the Scottish crowd are going to really get behind their people, or they're not going to care as much, because that also for me kind of, because especially it's hard because usually only got one hometown person that you're going in with 3 matches, so they have to understand that most likely, even though there is a version that exists where all the hometown people win, there's also a version where all the hometown people lose, which is probably looking more likely in my eyes. So I would go with the Bianca Belair and Jay Cargill team retaining.
So you're going for a retention there. Let's see if we still go for a retention when Bayley defends the WWE Women's Championship against Piper Niven. See, for me, this one came out of left field, this match. I mean, I'll hand it over to you for the first prediction.
Obviously, Bayley had a match against Tiffany Stratton and Naomi, wasn't it, in Paris? I don't know what she's been doing since, really. Obviously, Scott did have a chance to talk to her. That was like Money in the Bank, believe it or not. And it's really weird. She wanted her Mania moment. She got it, and Scott also spoke to back then Doudrop, now known as Piper Niven.
Thankfully, thankfully they went
a live
back.
event, wasn't it, in 2021? I want to say.
Yeah, that was back at 2021. Well, to put it into perspective, Big E was WWE champion at the time, so that's when it would have been.
2021. November 2021.
Yeah. Also,
okay.
I might as well just go through them as well. We interviewed Drew
McIntyre
and Damian Priest as well.
That was
a couple of occasions. So they were in. So that's like, go back and check out all the previous interviews that we've done with a few of the people on this card and a few of the people that are not on the card as well. Oh, there is that. Hang on. There's one that we did forget, Bianca Belair. There we go.
Yes,
we did talk to Bianca Belair as well.
And she was a champion then. She's still another champion.
Yeah.
I don't think there's been many days that Bianca Belair has not held a championship since being on the main roster.
It'd be interesting to find a stat out. And also, fun fact as well, as we were previously talking about the Women's World Championship, the first interview that we did on the channel was actually with the then women's tag team champions, the Iconics.
Ah.
Yeah. Also, we spoke to Shayna Baszler as well. So
Yep. So yeah, lots of
yeah, so
interviews
go
people
back-
to watch.
go back and check them out. Sorry. Just
But
we were talking about Bayley. I thought,
when we win this, and then
I-
like Bayley, she gave a really great match against Io Sky at Mania. Fantastic triple threat match. I just feel like it's a bit of a damp squib. Sorry. Her title run so far for me, anyway. I don't know.
Yeah,
it feels that
strange.
Yeah, it feels like obviously the situation on Raw with the women is much more important than the situation on SmackDown with the women.
Yeah,
And
it's like they were determined to get the belt onto Bayley, but then it's like, okay, we've put the belt on her. What do we do now? It's like they're like a deer in headlights with it, and it's like, where do we kind of go from here now?
I don't see the title changing hands here, so I will go sadly 2-0 against Scotland, so that Bayley will be retaining. I think this will be an okay match.
Hang on, is that in the football or in the Clash? Sorry, Scotland.
Clash. But my Clash score might resemble their actual score against Germany. But yeah, no, I think Piper Niven's not the person to beat Bayley. It's one of those matches, sadly. In my opinion, outside there could be an amazing angle or something they do on SmackDown or stipulation added or something. But I just see this as a TV match very much. TV title defense, it's fine. Potentially if it gets given some time. But I don't know if anyone can realistically believe that Piper Niven's going to defeat Bayley. Sadly, and that's where we're at with it, really. So I would have actually rather them I know they're trying to keep the brand split rules, but I'd have actually rather than have Akira facing off against Bayley, potentially, if they wanted to get the hometown. I know it's a bit of a stretch, but
even though she's Irish.
Well, it was a hometown in Cardiff, everyone, wasn't it?
For Drew, yeah.
True. Apart from Mark Andrews, who was signed, but he wasn't on the show. So
yeah.
But yeah, no, I think
Keegan Knox
we
as
may
well.
get more discussion points on Saturday, but it's no wasting time now. I just think Bayley isn't losing to Piper Niven on this kind of show, so Bayley's over.
Yeah, as much as I kind of would like, as much as I'm one of these like, I love the hometown pop, I don't think they're going to do it. I think Bayley's going over, and this, like, in the nicest way possible, I think it's going to be a very good in-ring match because they are both very good in-ring workers. But I just think this is more a kind of middle of SmackDown kind of match. Like, with all due respect, it is like, SmackDown filler match in my opinion, rather than a women's title match on a main, like, WWE PLE kind of thing. I'm just going to quickly get up the SmackDown women's roster at the moment and see, like, who they could have had potentially. Obviously, the main two, I guess, would have been probably Bayley and Bianca. Or are they Raw now? I'm not sure.
I'm not too sure because of the
right. So let's go. We'll go through SmackDown. Okay, so SmackDown women, they could have had B-Fab, Bianca Belair, Blair Davenport, Candice LeRae, Chelsea Green. There you go, channeling my inner Samantha Irvin there. Elektra Lopez, Indy Hartwell, Jade Cargill, Michin, Naomi, Queen Nia Jax, obviously Piper Niven, Tegan Knox, or Tiffany Stratton.
Well, that's the other reason as well, I guess, because we know Nia Jax has got the title match at SummerSlam.
Yeah, and I think that's probably where Bayley, I reckon, may lose it to Nia Jax at SummerSlam. So I think I think this is more of that, get through this match in one piece, get out there, get into SummerSlam and have the big title match with Nia Jax for the belt there. Because obviously, I keep going to call her bloody Doudrop. Piper
Name,
Niven.
to be fair.
Yeah, so Piper Niven, I feel, will go. I don't think she's obviously going to go into this as like a bit of a heel. It's going to be weird though, the crowd, because obviously Bayley is like beloved here in the UK.
Yeah,
but yet they've got a Scottish person in there, so it's hometown versus like the people's princess sort of thing. And yeah, I think, as I say, I think it'll be a very good, solid in-ring match. But for me, it's more of a middle of SmackDown match than probably a middle or opening PLE match for WWE. But yeah, I'm with you that it's going to be a Bayley retention in this one.
Yeah.
Right. So let's now get into the main event of the evening, which will be Damian Priest taking on Drew McIntyre for the World Heavyweight Championship. So this is obviously going to be the stipulation added from Monday Night Raw is that the Judgment Day are banned from ringside.
Does that include R-Truth?
That's the Judgment Day are banned from ringside. R-Truth's not technically a part of the Judgment Day. So yeah, Judgment Day banned from ringside. Goes to me first, this one, doesn't it? Right. I guess the elephant in the room is CM Punk going to show up and cost Drew McIntyre the title? That's as blunt as we can be with it. Obviously, I reckon there will be shenanigans in this one. Obviously, Judgment Day can't get involved. So there was an interesting line from Pat McAfee on Raw. And I've been trying to will this into existence, but I don't know whether there was anything in it or whether it was just a tongue-in-cheek thing. But Pat McAfee said on Drew McIntyre's entrance, say his name and he appears. Now, we know WWE have got this thing with TNA going on, with obviously Jordan Grace coming over to NXT. Could we see CM Punk interfere, try and help Damian Priest, and someone like a Joe Hendry come out, make the save for Drew McIntyre, and help Drew McIntyre win the World Heavyweight title in front of the fans in Scotland? I mean, to be fair, the ticket prices, this could well be like his first title reign when he won it at WrestleMania. The amount of people there. Back in the empty arena days, that was something. The fact that, like, reading his book, he said that he'd won the title and then he was watching it at home with his wife with the title underneath the sofa, and then his wife presented him with the championship after the match aired on TV. That must have been a very strange time. But yeah, I mean, that's a possibility that could happen. And that would be a surprise, actually. I think there's going to be shenanigans. I think, in all honesty, because they didn't do the change last year with Drew over Roman, when everyone felt that was the time for Roman to lose it, I do think Triple H is going to pull the trigger here, and I think we are going to see Drew McIntyre leave Scotland as the World Heavyweight Champion. I mean, I don't think it's going to be without shenanigans, but yeah, I think Drew's going to emerge as champ.
Yeah, I think the problem I'd have with the Joe Hendry thing is that they'd have to kind of then make it make sense for the American viewers, because they'd kind of be thinking, well, because as I said at the start of this, Drew McIntyre's been going into it as a villain, but you're now going to basically give him a babyface moment to win the championship. That won't make sense to anyone apart from.
I mean, he seemed he was a bit more babyface-ish on Raw when he came out. So it's like in this feud, he's playing the babyface role. He's been coming out and he was high-fiving the fans as he came out on Raw. So obviously you've got...
them.
Well, the thing is, because Priest is obviously the villain going into it, and then Drew's always going to be cheered in his hometown. So I think they kind of have to de facto babyface Drew McIntyre for this to work.
It'd be a very interesting one, because something that sticks out with this is CM Punk second cash in, and obviously CM Punk's first cash in was on Edge, a villain champion who was cocky and was up himself, and he kind of got what's coming to him because he got that's one ending of how a cash in can happen. The cocky villain gets his comeuppance, and that allows a new championship run to begin. But his second cash-in attempt was obviously on Jeff Hardy, the universally, loved, Jeff Hardy, and he did the same thing. And he turned around and said, "Well, what was the difference? You loved me when I cashed in on one person, but then hated me for the same reason when I cashed in on like another person. They were both similar circumstances, but just obviously different people." And obviously he used that, and it's a very, very underrated feud. That Jeff Hardy and CM Punk feud from like 2009.
Was that the one where? Was that where he came out and he had like all the Jeff Hardy face paint on it? During the feud, a
brilliant feud. And again, it gets kind of brushed past, I think, because of the whole PG era. And the kind of it being obviously at that point the second championship they had. But anyway, no, I think this is interesting because it's a case of Punk now. He was the babyface when he screwed Drew at Mania. But does he now become a de facto heel if he was to screw Drew in his hometown and ruin his moment again in front of fans? Or does it bounce back and swing back the other way? Because again, with Punk being injured, you have to imagine like his first match back, fans are going to want to cheer him, aren't they?
Yeah.
So it's a very interesting situation. I think there probably is need for some sort of 24 documentary. Please, WWE, use the network, please, like for stuff like this. Like it can really help us to understand, like, the story and like what's going on with this, because it does feel a bit like there's a lot of options they've got ahead of them. Now, there's various versions in my head that I'm thinking of this. And particularly when they added the stipulation of the I Quit match to the AJ Styles and Cody Rhodes match, because I have a theory that they might try to do the best worst case scenario where Priest wins, but the match isn't main event, and Cody main events because he's got a stipulation, and then Cody wins, and that's the babyface send them out, fans home happy kind of match. And again, the precedent for this is the fact that they just built NXT up for a month in one match, and then last minute went, "Oh, well, Ethan Page is debuting, so he's going to get the main event." But, okay. So do we see that's worth happening? Because that match only got added like last week, didn't it? A couple of days ago. Yeah. And the stipulation. And that is kind of a way to get that thing. But the main thing here is there's nothing for Damian Priest going forward. And there never has been. It's a sad reality. He sadly will go down at the moment, as probably one of the worst world champions like ever. Like, I hate to say it. I just think there's not been anything there.
I mean, not Jack Swagger levels yet, I don't think. I think Jack Swagger was quite bad.
Yeah, but I think that he's in that. For me, he's in that discussion. I think because obviously the bar was set quite high, but immediately after WrestleMania, when he cashed in, the collective fan base just went, "But why? What's next?" That there's no, as much as like he's not a bad worker, there was no like, "Oh, I can't wait to see Priest versus X person." There was none of that, and there is for every single time someone else wins a championship. There is always this kind of like, even if AJ Styles wins, you're like, we can see AJ Styles, maybe Cena will come back and we'll see AJ and Cena again, or you know what I mean. But the Damian Priest is like literally nothing. There was like no matches that anyone wanted to see of these. I guess maybe Damian and Finn. I guess because that's what they felt they were maybe teasing towards. But yeah, on the basis of there being nothing for Damian Priest and more for Drew McIntyre, then I think I've talked myself into Drew McIntyre ending the curse of the Scots on this show for me, for my predictions, and leaving with the World Heavyweight Championship. I mean, there is an option, I guess, where he could win and Punk attacks him afterwards. I don't see Punk not being involved with this. It doesn't make any sense how they've been going, though.
Yeah, I don't know. It's one of them. I mean, I think where they've been quite smart is they've not really mentioned him too much, and they've not had him involved in the last couple of weeks. So they've deliberately kept a bit quiet on CM Punk. So it's
I mean,
probably
maybe
like
that's deliberate, I guess.
it's either a case. Yeah, I think it's either a
100%.
case of they're doing it because it's not happening,
Mm.
or they're going to do it because that's happening, and they just want people to kind of think, oh, it's not going to happen. But then I think the fact that obviously they've had the ban the Judgment Day from ringside is now making me think
Someone's got to come
gonna
out.
Punk will get involved. And then I think if Punk gets involved, then it's then going to be because I think if Punk's fit, it's Punk and McIntyre at SummerSlam.
Or do they do? There is a way.
Unless Seth,
babyface
Seth's injured, isn't he? So
yeah. There's a way I think that Punk goes to a babyface here is if so Judgment Day are banned from ringside means to one or two things. That one of Judgment Day are going to come to ringside at some point, or someone else will come to. But with the way to actually booking as well, it might be both.
I mean, the only other way is Carlito. I mean, is he technically not a member of Judgment Day?
Oh yeah, he's not, is he? Yeah,
he's with Judgment Day, helping Judgment Day.
He's not a member.
I don't know if he's a full member of Judgment. I mean, I've not seen his name on a T-shirt yet, so it's not an official.
He's not a member, and I mean, you know, even if they wanted to, they could extend that to Rhea, where she is obviously still part of Judgment Day, but she's not at the moment part of the Judgment Day. It's been enough time for them to be like, well,
Liv Morgan, isn't it? She'll come out and.
But sorry, what I was getting at is, could there be a ref bump situation happen? Judgment Day then obviously come to the ring because obviously they don't realise the event's being streamed on the network. No wrestler realises that, do they? When they cheat and try to do something, you're being streamed by a wide, mate. But anyway, the Judgment Day try to come out, and Punk comes out to fend off the Judgment Day. Yeah, defend the Judgment Day to get his hands onto Drew, but it backfires. Drew wins, and then Punk's still the babyface because he hasn't actually attacked the homegrown hero.
Yeah,
because
unless he does it inadvertent, like he goes to hit Drew maybe, but then
he goes to hit Drew ducks or something.
Yeah, and he hits Priest. Maybe like a belt shot
or does their beloved thing they love doing when the person throws the belt in the middle of the two wrestlers, and it's like, did he throw it to Drew or did he throw it to Damian? You know, like in the middle of the ring kind of thing. And then
as long as they're not doing the Becky Charlotte thing where it's just like, yeah, there you go, just chuck it over there, go pick it up.
But yeah, I mean, I'm sure there's infinite possibilities for this, and some of our questions regarding Punk may or may not be answered as the week goes on. As you know, which will be recapped, guys, we're going to wrap up very shortly. This is meant to be a briefer thing, it's turned into an hour almost, but we are going to be back on Saturday, most likely Rob, Scott and myself, and potentially some guests, we never know, for the live build-up shows. On this show, Scott and Rob will have to give their predictions, as well as there'll be a further predictions if anything was to change or be added. And we'll straight after the show have an instant reaction of the show. So that will be featuring our thoughts and views on potentially what could be a very, very good show, you know, all things considered, to be fair.
You might have to dig your ref shirt out, mate, if them two are going to be doing predictions.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I think obviously there's always some heated discussion going on that, but that's obviously a more kind of deeper depth, and we'll probably, like I said, talk about ticket prices. Obviously, people have, if you're going to the event, or you know people are going to the event, you know.
Then where are you getting your bloody money from? Because I want the same job as that.
I guess they're probably hiding from a tax man, aren't they? Yeah. But yeah, no,
those credit cards have taken a pounding.
And yeah, I don't think you can watch this obviously on demand. And we have a plethora of content on this channel and our other channel, featuring interviews, exclusives, predictions, all our episodes now available as well on Spotify and Apple Music, and much more. So yeah, if you
all the good podcast channels and even the rubbish ones, you can find us.
Yeah, but yeah, I think that's about it for now. Like I'm excited for the show. I think it's another good one having this international pay-per-view. I mean, what time did it start for us? Like 8 o'clock?
I guess, yeah, 7, 8 o'clock, something like that. So reasonable time, probably around this sort of time. I mean, what are we at now? We're at nearly 8 o'clock. So yeah, probably people will just be getting in the 5th pint of Tennent's or the Iron Brew, bit of haggis and deep fried Mars bars and whatever they're going to be selling in the Ovo, Hydro, arena center building.
Just earlier, by the way, we spoke about Kaylee Ray. So her women's NXT UK Women's Championship run, title reign, it is the longest reign for a women's champion in WWE's history. It was 649 days. So that obviously beats the year-long runs of Becky Lynch and Bianca Belair in recent years, as well as Asuka's 500-odd day NXT Women's Championship reign. So yeah, like she's got props to herself. Do you know what I mean? Like Kaylee Ray, but
I think you could say she maybe carried the NXT UK women's division.
Yeah,
just a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, it didn't last very long. Let's be real.
Obviously, Rhea Ripley as well, former NXT UK women's champion as well.
Yeah, she was, and then I mean, I'm looking back. They only actually had four champions.
So hang on, let me try and guess. So was it Toni Storm, the other one?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah,
and then Mandy Rose won it to unify the NXT and NXT UK women's titles.
But they don't seem to count that as a.
So they're not. And then was it Mako Satomura?
Yeah, the old Japanese.
You can't say that.
The old Japanese wrestler. Didn't we finish? The old Japanese wrestler. She's still signed, isn't she? But she hasn't appeared for ages.
I think so. I'm not sure. She's like the Kendo Nagasaki of WWE, pretty much.
It's mad that she debuted in 1995, so she's like a 30-year veteran almost.
Yeah.
But she last appeared on NXT, I think. Yeah, she hasn't appeared since Worlds Collide. Oh, sorry, no, NXT Roadblock. And she lost to Sam Perez, NXT Roadblock, in March 2023. But she's still signed to the company. It's very, very, very odd. Yeah, I mean, if anyone knows where she is, please let us know. Maybe I guess she could be one of the people helping them set up, obviously, NXT Japan. The rumor.
I thought you were going to say setting up. I thought you were going to say setting up the ring before the show.
She's now been demoted to ring crew.
She's going
to very, very soon.
Yeah, she's just gonna be going and fetching the teas and coffees. And,
But yeah, on that note, I think
before we end up getting the show cancelled, right? Let's. But yeah, yes, obviously Mako Satomura joined the list along with Kaylee Ray, Rhea Ripley, Toni Storm. I guess you could, and Mandy Rose as NXT UK Women's Champions.
Yeah, Mandy Rose held the belt, but they don't recognise the ranking, I guess. She helped, she walked. Yeah.
She was the one who wanted to basically unify it with the NXT Women's Championship now. So, yeah. Right. So I think on that note, that is pretty much everything for this episode of the Rebellious Noise Pro Wrestling channel. This was the preview and prediction show for Clash at the Castle, Glasgow, Scotland.
Yep.
So yeah, we got a message here on YouTube. Heart attack 35 says hi. So hi, Heart Attack 35, and hi and bye, I guess, because we have just finished up. But if you go back, you can watch the show on demand. So yeah, that is everything from myself and Lucas. We will be back, or Lucas will be back most likely with Rob and Scott on Saturday with the live build-up to Clash at the Castle, Scotland. So that is everything from us, guys. Take care. We will see you on Saturday. Take care. Ta-da for now.
Welcome to the Rebellious Noise Pro Wrestling channel. On this channel, we bring you some great content from inside and outside of the squared circle. We will go through and offer some in-depth analysis of the biggest events of the year, as well as bringing you exclusive interviews with some of the industry's biggest names. There will also be live show reviews, in-depth features, and podcasts. So make sure you give that subscribe button a slam so you don't miss any of the action.
All right, guys, Welcome back. So that was it. That was Dan and Lucas telling us what they thought earlier in the week. And as we saw on the replay there, Lucas will be joining us in just a little bit as well. Hoping to get some special guests on the show for you tonight. I say tonight, it's still the afternoon. It's still quite light outside here in the UK, as you can see. And you can only imagine what the atmosphere is like there in Glasgow. We mentioned it a few times during the stream that you've seen already. We were lucky enough to be there in Cardiff. This time round didn't work out, unfortunately. Busy schedules, the Euros, and you name it. There's a lot going on at the moment for us here at Rebellious Noise. But we are happy to still bring you this live content on the day of the PLE, like we usually do as well. So again, it's all about getting yourself and ourselves hyped up and ready for the show. So I want to know what event you're most looking forward to, guys. What did you think of Dan and Lucas's predictions that you've seen already? And again, hopefully we're going to have a few more voices on this channel throughout the evening before the show kicks off as well. We're going to take you all the way up until Clash at the Castle, Scotland actually starts. And we'll talk about things that happen on the countdown show as well. Will they have a pre-show? Remember when we were there for Cardiff? A rare occasion these days, but they actually did have a match on what was then called the kickoff. And it was a match, I remember, featuring the Street Profits, which made a lot of sense because they were there doing media. They were doing interviews and things like that. And they did have a match. It was a little confusing. I don't know if anyone that's been kind of interviewed this week have not got a match or anything like that, or not involved with a storyline at least. I don't see any names popping out on top of my head, but if anyone has spotted anyone like that they think will be on a pre-show or the countdown, as they call it now, then let me know. Someone, as far as being spotted goes, here we go. We're getting talking predictions and rumours swirling around, but none other than CM Punk. Spotted in Glasgow, not just in Glasgow, guys, but in the Celtic Superstore, apparently. It looks like he was shopping for a Glasgow Celtic shirt. And will that play into the show? I'm not sure. I do think he's going to appear. He's there for a reason. I felt that before, even without seeing a picture of him in the city. But now that he's shopping for a Celtic shirt, when Drew McIntyre is quite famously a Rangers fan, if you're unfamiliar with why this is relevant, I just kind of bring it up to speed. They are two clubs in the same city who, I'll put it kind of mildly, don't like each other very much. There's a lot of history there, not just on the pitch, but off it as well. So it's one of the most fierce rivals in football. And again, McIntyre is a fan of one of those teams. So if Punk showed up in the Celtic shirt, it would be quite funny and significant. It's going to be awkward because that is kind of the situation we find ourselves in with CM Punk anyway, because he's going to show up, if he does show up, as kind of the outsider, a heel, right? There's a risk he's going to get booed because people want Drew to get his moment, even though he's a heel, because it's in Glasgow, or it's even just in the UK, you know, when it came close in Cardiff. Yes, he was a babyface then, but, you know, this whole story they've built up for years now of him not getting the moment. They've tweaked it because he did kind of get the moment at WrestleMania now. And it's kind of changed from that. You would imagine Punk is going to factor back in here, and then this is going to maybe go to SummerSlam. So does that factor into my predictions? I'll let you know in just a moment. But I do think CM Punk is going to show up. How he shows up, again, it'd be interesting to see. Let me know, guys, what do you think is going to happen at Clash tonight? Are we going to get any other surprises? Namely, Joe Hendry. That'd be a pretty cool one, right? Everybody's pretty pumped about what Joe's been doing lately. We had the privilege of interviewing Joe Hendry a few years ago on the main Rebellious Noise channel. So if you haven't seen that yet, go and check that out. We've believed in Joe Hendry for a long time, as you can see. And he is certainly a man who believes in himself, because he's got this incredible ad campaign around the city of Glasgow. You may have seen this already, but there are pictures of him, you know, the famous image of him staring at the screen on billboards around the city. So what a way to take advantage of a moment and an opportunity. Even if he's not on the show, I think it's incredible marketing for himself. Speaking of which, he just went to something ridiculous like, you know, number 8 or 6. I can't remember where it was, but a top 10 hit essentially in the UK singles chart with his I Believe in Joe Hendry theme song. So the man is making waves at the moment. He was in Natalia's video the other day. It's got 500,000 views now of him training at the current, I guess, version of the dungeon. And that's interesting. Yes, Natty does train with people outside WWE, but it's interesting timing. He had a good showing on TNA's pay-per-view last night. Could he be flying back over here in time for Clash at the Castle? Yeah, he could. We've seen surprises like this before. So it would be cool. Whether or not we're going to see it, I don't know. Again, guys, let me know in the comments what you think is going to happen here. But let's go through the matches and let's talk about them one by one. And I'm going to finally commit to my predictions here. You saw Dan and Lucas's just a moment ago. I'm going to bring up some of those for myself in the background, just so I can kind of refer back to them and kind of talk about, I guess, differences in opinion for predicting this show as well. So we'll go through them one by one, and let's start with, well, seeing as we've got a Scottish flair throughout the show, really, let's sprinkle them in kind of evenly. We'll start with a match that contains two Scots, actually, with Fire and Dawn, of course, going up against Zoe Stark and Shayna Baszler, excuse me. But most importantly, of course, in the middle there are the tag team champions, and it's all about that gold. We've got Bianca Belair and Jade Cargill defending their gold in Glasgow, Scotland. Now, will it be a win for the Scottish? Well, no. Is my opinion. Not this time round. And it'll be interesting to see. I saw Dan and Lucas kind of saying, would it be all of them? Would it be none of them? It'll be interesting, of course. But for me, this match, I don't think the Scottish representation will be leaving with the gold or just even picking up the victory, even because I do agree with what Dan was saying, actually. I do think that this match may have contained just 4 of these girls if it wasn't a PLE based in Scotland. But that being said, Fire and Dawn have been kind of sprinkled into the show a bit more lately. About a month ago, they were doing quite a bit on Raw and SmackDown, on the weeklies even. So there is that, but I don't think they're leaving with the titles, and I don't think they're coming off of the current champions. I don't think they should go on Baszler and Zoe Stark. I'm really annoyed that they've even put Baszler back in a tag team, because she turned on her tag team partner and best friend at Money in the Bank here in London. We had the privilege of interviewing her just before it. She was all happy about being back with her friend, and obviously that feud was what it was. But it was a shocking moment, don't get me wrong, but my big concern at the time was that, in my opinion, devalued the tag titles. And it all depended where the storyline went, if they could save it, and they didn't, in my opinion. It really devalued an already, at that time, heavily kind of turbulent history of these titles. So I wasn't a fan of that, as much as I was a fan of the moment, which was incredible. Again, if you don't, haven't already seen it, go back and check my instant reaction where I was live outside the O2, telling you exactly how I felt at the time. But that being said, I do think it does damage the fact that she's in a tag match now. Yes, you could argue, look, Big Show turns on people all the time, and they used to follow him all about, and kind of be friends with him. Kevin Owens and Randy Orton and Notorious and turning on people. Now they're buddies themselves. So, yes, there is that side of the argument. I get that. But at the same time, and you could say, oh, it was all about a specific storyline and how the friendship had broken down or whatever. And Shayna as a character could say, was always looking like that. I don't feel the same way. But again, she devalued the title. She didn't care about the titles. She gave them up. So why is she so intent on going after him now? I know the argument may be the Ronda thing was that much more important, but then again, that devalues the titles to me. So that's frustrating me in the first sense, even though I'm a big fan of Shayna's work, even though I do think she's been massively underutilized since she came onto the main roster. But hey, we seem to say that every single month, and every single time we have to predict a Shayna Baszler match. So I won't tread over old ground too much there, because I've done a bit already. So in my opinion, they won't be winning the titles. They shouldn't be winning the titles, even though I understand, if you take away the whole Ronda thing, why they're together, they kind of match, I guess, as far as they got similar kind of characters. There you go, put them together. But I don't think it's time to take them with Cargill and Belair, because I think, obviously, the turn's coming at some point, and I don't think it's going to be at Clash. I do think it's probably going to be at the end of SummerSlam, or it'll be sped up and they will have a match at SummerSlam. Something's happening at SummerSlam between these two, right? So we'll see that the closer we get. But for me, it just doesn't really make sense to take them off him, other than the hometown pop of Fire and Dawn. Now, whether or not we don't get the other ones, and therefore this is the one we get, because you think there's got to be a Scottish person winning somewhere on this card, right? But the way I'm booking it, I don't see it being this match. Speaking of which, Fire and Dawn, I did get to interview Kaylee Ray at the time, a few years ago when she was NXT UK Women's Champion. Dan mentioned it earlier on that stream. So if you haven't already, go back and check that out on this channel. It was herself and Rampage Brown in a combo interview at the time. But let's move on to the next match, guys. Let's talk about another title match. That's quite a big one, really. We've got Sami Zayn, the Intercontinental Champion, going up against Gable. Now, this is going to be an interesting one because you've got the whole storyline going on around, of course, the Alpha Academy. Hold on, just to really drive home, we are on a build-up show, guys. I've got my giant Stein again. These build-up shows are some of my favorite, not just because I have the beer, but because they are a lot more loose, and we'll get to, again, hopefully some guests in a while. We find out all these last-minute breaking news and stuff like that. It always is one of my favorite streams to be part of. Maybe I should have had a Stein, though, quite famous in Germany, and especially on a Scottish-based show, right? After last night's performance. But, hey, that's for another channel, Rebellious Noise FC. Go and check that out. But let's get back to what we're here for, right? Pro wrestling in Scotland. This one not containing a Scottish wrestler, but still two incredible performers that I think are going to steal the show in some aspect, right? I think it's going to be an emotionally charged event with all the Scottish wrestlers and stuff like that. But the match of the night could potentially be the one we're talking about here. Of course, the Intercontinental title, a lot of times the workers' title, right? So maybe that makes sense, really, for that to be the show stealer. Now, will there be a title changing hands? This is where I think things have to start taking a turn for this storyline, right? We got the Alpha Academy, and we keep having the tease of Otis and the rest of them, really, but mainly Otis turning on Chad Gable. Now, my big concern a few months ago was that I felt Gable should have had the moment up against Gunther. It shouldn't have been Sami Zayn, but I do like what they've done since. The problem is it's going on a little bit long now. The one benefit to that at the moment, I feel, is that Otis is finally getting his kind of, I guess, rub again. He's looking good again, right? Again, famously on this channel, if you've been with us for a while, I was very, very, very much against Otis winning the Money in the Bank, because as much as I appreciated how over he was at the time, that was a different position for me, right? Didn't work out for him anyway. And I do think he lost a lot of that shine because of that. But I think he's slowly coming back now. And that was inevitable, really, when you have the Alpha Academy surely eventually turn in, and he's going to be a big part of that. So I do think, if anything, has helped that character. But something's got to give soon, right? So for me, it's either got to be the massive moment where Otis finally, no doubt it weren't an accident. He wasn't quickly had his mind changed at the end by Gable, manipulated again. He just turns in the Alpha Academy, kind of, celebrate and kind of Gable gets these comeuppance. If that is the case, where do they go from here? I don't know. So we'll have to see. Join us for the instant reaction after the show, guys. We'll be talking about everything that goes down and what we think is coming next with regards to these storylines and match outcomes. But going back to the IC title itself, that's also something that maybe needs to change, right? So either Gable needs to be turned on for this storyline to progress, or he needs to win the gold. Now, the risk there is that, and I don't think there's any problem with Sami losing the title. I don't think he really needed it in the first place. The risk there is that we continue still the Alpha Academy stuff, and we still wait for that turn. But maybe that's going to drag out really long, and that's where they really impact him, right? They take the title off of him, or they help take the title off of him, or even they do. Maybe it's Otis takes it off him or something like that. For me, something needs to happen at this show, or if not this one, the next one, because there's a lot of PLEs coming thick and fast over the next few months, but at the same time, some of these storylines are starting to drag. So we need to get some sort of progression, in my opinion, and ultimately, I think this should be Gable's time, right? I think he should be winning the title here. He should be beating Sami Zayn, taking it back to the Alpha Academy, who are happy for him, but not really, because he's turned into the animal that he is at the moment. So I think it will be, and it should be, a win for Chad Gable, and I'd be very happy to see him as IC champ. I do feel like him winning it as a babyface would have been the bigger moment, arguably, and I was a bit concerned about that he didn't, but still, I think there will be good progression if Chad Gable as IC champ on his CV, then I'm happy with that, right? So let's hope we get something like that. If you're not a Gable fan and you don't think he should be winning, well, Let me know in the comments. Let me know what you think will happen at Clash of the Castle, and let me know what you think will be going on, forward at least when it comes to this storyline. If it isn't a title change, or we get none of those things, is Sami winning and we don't get a turn. It'd be disappointing for me if that is the case. A match card of only 5 matches. We need to kind of get a few surprises here and there, I'm sure, and I do think that is a potential for one of them, because you can't have all the Scots win, right? It won't make sense. So hopefully this Scot will win. And I'm not Scottish, by the way, guys. The name, obviously. But hopefully it'll be a few extra points for me, because I'd like to see Gable win this title. Anyway, let's move away from the Intercontinental title and let's talk about another Scottish wrestler in Piper Niven going up against Bayley. Now, this is where we start to get a little bit more into that territory of how do you make the Scottish wrestler not win? Because, show my card straight away, I don't think Piper Niven is going to win here. I do believe she is worthy of holding the title. I do believe that she could be the champion on a brand, but I don't think now's the time. I think she's been kind of, I wouldn't say shoehorned in, because that's maybe unfair, because she's still been working very well, but let's face it, she wasn't presented this way that long ago. It's taken a while for her to kind of build her character back up. Of course, we did interview her while she was under the name of Dewdrop, and we were talking about the changes in her character and her name at the time. If you haven't already, check that out. Lovely woman, very, very nice to us at the time. And I do wish her nothing but success, but I don't feel like it's coming tonight. I do feel like Bayley's going to keep the title. And again, how do you go about that? Well, I mentioned earlier on in the original stream there that to do it in a tag title match, what you could do is have Baszler and Stark be the ones that take the loss, so that it's not the Scottish girls essentially getting pinned, right? That's a good way to work around it there. And I do think that is probably the way it's going to go. With this match, however, Piper Niven, I think, if we're talking star quality, right? And for me, it goes in the order we're doing these matches, really. Fire and Dawn at the moment, great team, working well together. The biggest women's star from Scotland has been Piper Niven, right? So she's the next one up. Drew is the biggest Scottish star of all time, so he's the next one up as well. So with that in mind, it's how annoyed will the fans be at what level? Which one do they really want to cheer for? And I think we all know it's the last match, right? They want to see it here. If it was the only one, any of these, they'd want the Scottish person to win. But we've got 3 opportunities where it can happen. So I think really they're mainly going to be focused on the main event. So I think you can afford to do it here. And also you can afford to do it here because Bayley is quite loved in the UK. Now, you've got the issue, of course, of basically all the Scottish wrestlers are heels, which is tough anyway. Because they're going to get cheered. It's like when we used to have Raw after Mania or go to Canada or the UK and they try and force us to think this was Bizarro land and we cheer for the wrong people. But that's just the way it is, right? Now they're kind of more accepting and explaining of it. But we'll have to see how it goes down here. I do think, again, it's not that bad because Bayley is loved by wrestling fans all over. She isn't the babyface kind of in a position where she's shoved down your throat. I think people still very much feel that she deserves to be in a position she's in. The title reign hasn't caught the world on fire, I got to be honest. Even though I'm glad she got it, I'm glad she won the Royal Rumble as well, but she hasn't been presented in that way that much. It's been a little bit awkward at times, but hey, again, I don't think that's anything on her. So I think she should keep the title for now. We'll see further down the line about her possibly losing it. I don't think it's the time for Piper Niven to win it. I wouldn't be against it. I think it'd be a pretty cool moment. But yeah, I think it's a little easier for them to get out of this kind of, oh no, the Scottish person's been pinned situation, because it's a person who, when she comes to the UK, even when she was a heel or a babyface, she gets the Hey Bayley chant, for example, and she's just very well loved overall by wrestling fans. So I think they're in a safe position there to not be forced into giving it to the Scottish person. Again, not saying that she's undeserving or anything like that, but I just don't think this is what they want to do or what should happen at the moment. So, yeah, we'll have to see how it does go down. But for me, I'm saying that Bayley is going to walk away here with the title that she's heading into the event with. So, with that in mind, let's move on to the next match, and we're talking WWE Undisputed title here. It is Cody Rhodes against AJ Styles once again. Now, I don't say that in a bad way because the last one we saw was a great match. I quit matches are hit and miss. So we'll have to see how this one goes down. Again, another opportunity for match of the night here. I think they had a fantastic showing at Backlash. Obviously, we had the Mark Henry type situation with AJ Styles. So that'll be interesting to see how they kind of build off of that part of the story. Obviously, the week after it, Cody's infuriated. He turns it into an I quit match because of that. And I think they played on that quite well. But yeah, for me, I just don't see Cody losing the title anytime soon. Not to AJ Styles anyway. He's not in this position to win the title, in my opinion. He's here to get Cody to his next feud. What that is, when that is, I don't quite know. But it's not to win the title, in my opinion. So Cody is surely coming out on top for this one. It's not really going to be the big match, is it? It's strange in this era that this title isn't the main event. I don't think it's going on last. I don't think it's going to get as much fanfare because the big one that we all want to talk about, really, of course, is Damian Priest defending his World Heavyweight Championship instead against Drew McIntyre. Now, this is where it starts to get a little interesting because we do have, Drew, someone that is going for the title, who had done the same thing already in Clash in Cardiff already. And now, let's be honest, it is the secondary title out of the two, but still one that will be very much appreciated, I'm sure, if Drew McIntyre wins it either way. Talking of very much appreciated, I am going to be joined now by a guest here from the Rebellious Noise Pro Wrestling channel in Lucas. So we're just going to bring him up and into the studio. How you doing, Lucas?
Hi, Scott. Hi, guys.
How you doing? You good?
Yeah, we're well, thank you. We're well.
Good. So I've been going through the card so far.
Yeah.
I'll give you a little recap if you haven't been able to see it so far. But I'm just getting on to the main event here. Obviously, the main event is where all the chat's about anyway. So before giving my kind of nailed on prediction for it, I figured I'd get your general vibes of the show. Since you had the predictions, of course, this stream earlier on started with a replay of yourself and Dan. But
Yeah.
Have your opinions changed much since you've seen Clash? The pre. SmackDown before Clash, I'm trying to say, in Glasgow as well. What were your thoughts on that show and what are your thoughts going into Clash tonight?
Yeah, so I think one match that I would have changed is actually the main event. I think Priest might win. I know you're going to get to that in a second, but it's just one of those where I was going through it again and going through, and I think I only picked what I picked because obviously, honestly, what they've done with this pay-per-view is actually quite amazing because I'll be honest, it's not the best card, but having 3 homegrown acts in 3 matches has really thrown the predictions, I feel, for a lot of people because people are thinking surely one of these Scottish guys or girls have got to win.
Yeah.
But surely there's got to be one hometown pop in there. And it's just like, maybe what if there's not?
I mean, that's the risk, ain't it? Because, we've been going through, again, I saw what you guys said earlier in the week, how Dan was saying that the tag titles, for example, you can have, and then not even take the pin. So that's quite handy there. Piper, I was saying, I think Bayley beating her kind of isn't as bad because she's loved by UK fans anyway. But the main one is that Drew one. And I do think, look, if you go back to Clash in Cardiff, yes, it was in Wales, another country that makes up this union we're part of. But you know what? It was still dubbed as this hometown thing, and it was the main title, let's be honest, and it was Roman Reigns, and it felt like a mistake when Drew didn't win. Now, in hindsight, was it? I don't know. The Cody Rhodes thing's changed, and that was big. But at the time, it felt like, if not him, if not now, what the heck is going on, right? Now, it worked out in the end, and that's great. But ultimately, do you want people leaving that arena thinking the same thing again? I don't think that will go down very well. So I'm leaning more towards Drew, I have to be honest. But the problem is, you got Judgment Day, you got CM Punk, you got things like
so many factors.
The rest of the card, as you say, because you know what it's going to happen. It's going to be like we're going to see potentially another Scottish wrestler win and go, oh, there we go. Drew's not winning. You know how that always happens. Like it does play into the rest of the show as well. So it'll be interesting to see if they kind of do attempt to swerve us like that. But yeah, a big part of this is Drew, and the problem is though, really, it's not the main title. He's not a baby face. Like it's not as good as what could have been Cardiff. But where you make up for it is the fact it's actually in Scotland. So you've at least got that.
People, that's the thing. One thing people keep omitting from this report is that the original Clash at the Castle wasn't in Scotland. Like, they did the whole hometown thing for a lot of people, but none of them were Welsh. I believe Mark Andrews was the sole Welsh member of the roster at that point, potentially.
I think he might have just left not long before, but either way, I mean, they could have brought him back.
For one night.
Yeah,
but yeah, they had Sheamus, for example, who's Irish.
Yeah,
and they had him as a hometown. And then for a long while, they had no. Now they fixed it because they've got Nathan Fraser and Riley Osborne in NXT, who are English. But for a long time, they had no English wrestler, wrestling for them. They had Scottish, they had Irish, but they didn't have any English. Now obviously they fixed that. But I think people forget that initial title defense was obviously in Cardiff. It wasn't it's not like this has happened before. But obviously you have to imagine this is Drew's baby, because I remember I think we was at the event when obviously Drew promised a pay-per-view to Kingdom, and we got that last year with Money in the Bank. And then I think he's spoken very openly about wanting a pay-per-view in his own country, in Scotland. And then now he's been able to do that. But there's so many things that we go through this, and it's just like sometimes the rewards the match itself. I spoke about that quite a lot when we spoke about the Alba Fire or the Dawn tag. I think for them, the reward is the match. The reward is they get to have the match in front of the hometown crowd and get that massive pop and ovation. I think some people go too far and thinking that reward is thing. Same thing, similarly last year with Selena Vega at Puerto Rico Backlash. The reward for her was very much just that entrance and being in front of her people. But the match was a 5-minute match, wasn't it? Rhea Ripley, and she lost. Quite decisively, and that was it. She was out of the title picture ever since, I think. And she had a single match for it afterwards, but the reward was the match. So I think, but it has made it very hard to predict things because, usually with these things, and I think it's why having the 5 matches and all title matches as well, aren't they? All championship matches. Yeah. Which I'm not the biggest fan of either. I think, it feels like everything's up for grabs, which makes you think that something's got to change, surely. But if only one championship changes hands, it's a bit like, you're a bit like, everyone's just kind of the same as it was. Nothing really mattered. But at least
if none of them change it, it really drives home just how poor it is. It would feel like a poor show.
Yeah. I mean, the crowd, I've seen clips of SmackDown last night. The crowd seem really up for it. They don't quite seem, I'll be honest, they don't quite seem the levels of France, of Leon.
It's because we're not there, you Lucas.
Yeah, we weren't at Leon either.
Oh, yeah, true. But I mean, for the UK rep,
I think as well, controversial, I actually think the Saudi crowd were good for King and Queen of the Ring. For basically the second half, I think.
Yeah, I think they built off of the France one. I think a lot of people watching, when it comes to their country or city, they're going, oh, man, we need to be look at all the buzz that France created. We need to do the same. And
I mean, I've noticed, obviously, I guess, English not their first language, but obviously they are picking up on the chants and some of the songs and kind of, those kind of things that we and the American crowds do. And I don't know, I know there's a lot of people who feel differently about the Saudi shows. Some people don't watch them at all. And again, that's their prerogative. But I don't know. I think a lot of the complaints, though, other than the stuff which we can't control, outside of obviously the wrestling show, a lot of people's complaints were about the crowd, weren't they, initially? But the crowd being disinterested and, not being very loud. But I felt the last couple, they've actually shown up to. Been quite loud. And they're kind of really picking up upon what's going on. But yeah, we'll see how it is once the pay-per-view starts. It'll be interesting. I think Backlash, it started really good with the brawl, didn't it? The brawl between Bloodline and Orton and Kevin Owens.
Yeah.
Got straight to the action. Because again, another thing is obviously not having the pre-show matches. As I imagine the pre-show will be getting very, very soon.
I was just going to say I've got one eye on that, and Kevin Owens is wearing a Scotland 316 T-shirt with a tie because he's on the panel. Very professional. Yeah, it was called the Countdown now, isn't it? The Countdown to Clash at the Castle. I think it started about 5 o'clock actually. So yeah, it's I think it's about 2 hours. Yeah, it's a long one. So, but we'll be keeping an eye on that. If there are any matches, guys, we'll keep you up to date with it as well. But yeah, go ahead.
I'll put it on the background as well. So it's always good to have something to have in the background. But I mean, okay, yeah, that's interesting. They're doing a 2-hour thing for this. You know, where does that leave? Obviously, like stuff like SummerSlam, Money in the Bank, where there's going to be obviously more matches and multiple. Because you know, as much as obviously there's a lot to discuss, there's not a lot to discuss. I mean, in a nice way, that it's just 5 matches. We know that at least 2 of them, in a nice way, are going to just be like your, you know, bog standard kind of TV kind of match, and you know, there's not going to be any repercussions. You know, I can't see much of this continuing post this show, which we touched on a little bit on our predictions, but it does feel a little bit like. This show feels very much like it's in its own kind of thing, if that makes sense. As much as it's continuing, obviously, with the main storylines, it does feel a bit like these are only going to happen. These are matches that would only happen here at this show, which is both good and bad, I guess, because you know, like it feels unique, but it also feels like in a 2-3 years' time, is this event going to be skippable because you know nothing really else it's just this event it's unique to.
It's happening with a lot of the PLEs, especially international ones, and it is a risk that people are going to feel like. And I think we spoke about this in the build-up to Backlash. Are people going to feel like they're getting shortchanged and they're going, look, I mean, it's all right for the first time. Everybody goes, oh man, we've never had the PLE. But when you go back there for the second time, is it going to be a risk factor? And don't get me wrong, there's a lot of countries they can still go to. You know, they could do a show in India, they could do a show in Spain, they could do a show in Mexico, Brazil. You know, like there are still a lot of countries, I'm sure, around the world that would be happy to have a PLE, and it would kind of still go down quite well. But it is a risk if you want to come back to these clearly main markets that they've already tested first of all. It would be strange coming back here and trying that same old thing again. But hey. Let's hope, and I do think, to be fair, most of the shows have still delivered quite well.
The only thing is, do they, when they return or when they look to the next year, let's say, do they decide that they want to redo these kind of bespoke events in different locations? So they will continue them as potentially yearly pay-per-views, or do they go, oh, we're going to use our existing pay-per-view slate, or potentially ones from our archives, and then you know, and then fit those in, if that makes sense. Like, do we see Clash at the Castle next year? But where else is there a castle? There's a castle in Leeds, for example. You know, like Leeds Castle down here in the south. Do we see them run somewhere down south and call that Clash at the Castle? Yeah. You know, do we, or same with Bash in Berlin? It's like, do they just take the Bash part out because we respect the big Great American Bash and you know, the Bash they had at one point, and could that just become like Bash in Budapest next year?
It could do. I mean, for me, that just quickly touching on Berlin show, I think that name is awful.
I'm going to that.
Are you going? Oh, brilliant! All right, that's good to know. That's good to know.
Sending me 1,000 requests for videos. I'm going to both the SmackDown and the thing. Both of them.
Oh, brilliant. Okay, brilliant. All right, yeah. So I'm still looking into whether or not. We'll see. But either way, there'll be some sort of Rebellious Noise presence. Go and say hello to Lucas if you are in Berlin for that show. Yeah, there you go. Look at you, get used to it already. But I do think, like, because Backlash didn't need, like, they just put it in, same as Elimination Chamber, they said Perth, and this one even still Clash of Castle brackets Scotland or whatever, you know. I do think there's potential to do, like, Clash, they're lucky with Clash in some ways, because yes, a castle in the location is ideal, like it was in Wales. This one, as you were saying on the show earlier this week, it's not exactly in Glasgow, but it's in the same country. You do have several castles in England, so you could still do here. And there are several countries, particularly around Europe, that will still have famous castles that they can use as well. So they do have that opportunity there, which is pretty good. Whether or not, like you say, it becomes Bash in Budapest, I don't know. I know there's talk of potentially this week bringing back Bad Blood. So does that just become a US thing again, or do they use it somewhere else? So it'd be interesting to see. But I do feel like there is this risk that they can only live off the whole kind of, hey guys, we've never been here. You guys are so loud for so long. They won't be that loud if they get this card next year, a similar kind of card, because I do think as a show it can deliver. And like I said, to their credit, most of these shows individually, Backlash in Puerto Rico, I think was one of the best shows of the year. And a big part of that is the fan base, but will this continue if they do go back to Berlin in 2 years' time, or they go back to Lyon next year, or they come to, London's always a good crowd, don't get me wrong, and I'm sure many of those crowds will be as well. But even the Money in the Bank, I remember a lot of us thinking, like, is this a good card? It was really hard to tell, so
I think Money in the Bank was, even obviously, you always take your rose tinted glasses off and go, we were pumped for it. But I think genuinely it was a very good card. I think they had 2 very good ladder matches. The main event, obviously, tag with Roman getting pinned. Like it felt monumental. John Cena's the one thing that may date the show, if obviously WrestleMania London doesn't happen, is that scene of appearance with respect. Yeah. But because it is a network era, that can quite easily be chopped off. It can be chopped off. Because they can even edit it into like Cena's entrance and just like have him coming out of the entrance and make it look like he only came out and just made an appearance. But look, I think ultimately, Bad Blood. But that also begs the question: do they then start going back to the history books because they own names from multiple companies over multiple years? And I think personally, like that could be a good way to go to relive, because some, there's always those wrestling fans, especially at these big events, that you see wearing, merchandise from 20 years ago, 30 years ago. And you mentioned it just now, obviously, about the panel, to bring the pre-show into things. Kevin Owens wearing a Scotland 316 t-shirt. Like Stone Cold, aside from his one match he did at WrestleMania a few years ago, Stone Cold hasn't wrestled a full match in 20 years, and they're still making merch of him. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. So it's like, he, there's always fans basically. I'm getting at that. Well, that will be after. That kind of stuff. So I think
the nostalgic names
after old events isn't a bad idea. Like No Mercies, Unforgivens.
No Mercies is a great one. They've always got the game to live off of that. That still lives in infamy because of the N64 game. You've also they've just brought back King of the Ring in the sense of King and Queen, which I think is gone down really well as well. So you mentioned it earlier, Bash, that could easily go back to the Great American Bash if they bring it back to the States as well. So yeah, it would be good to kind of, although I like structure and I do like something being a yearly event, but as long as you don't touch the main ones, I'm fine with dropping one here and there. Clash didn't happen last year, but we've got it back this year. So, even if they become, biannually, that won't be such a bad idea either.
I guess it's very difficult as well because, obviously, much as we are quite removed from the pandemic era, we have to remember that this phase we're in now is quite new still.
Yeah.
A, having international shows, and B, the fact that a lot of the gimmick events like TLC, Hell in a Cell, Extreme Rules seems up in the air at the moment, whether that's gone. But a lot of those events have now gone. Those were events where, for better or for worse, they were the mainstays of WWE programming for the most part of like 10 years, 15 years almost, I guess. I mean, you have to include Money in the Bank in that as well. Money in the Bank is a gimmick pay-per-view, like it was the match that used to happen at WrestleMania and then got moved to its own event. And obviously, as much as people disliked Hell in a Cell and for kind of becoming predictable, every October someone had to have a feud inside the cell. Money in the Bank is kind of similar, but it's different, and we'll get to that probably next month, obviously. That's next month's debate. But the Chamber as well is another one where obviously for years it's always been in that position, but it kind of has to be because logistically you're finding a place. And similarly, you could now include Survivor Series and the Royal Rumble because they were the original pay-per-views.
Yeah, see, it's not so bad when they lead to something like the Rumble leads to Mania. Chamber Tech usually does as well. Money in the Bank, it looks like they've even worked in the King Queen the Ring going into future title shots and whatever again as well. So it's funny though because you mentioned gimmick pay-per-views. Kind of being a thing in the past, but they're not really when you think about it because the gimmick at the moment is the country. The country is the gimmick. Like that's the gimmick. But like when you look back at Backlash, you'll go, "Oh, the French one," and when you look back at the other Backlash before, you go, "Oh, the Puerto Rican one." So like that's the gimmick at the moment.
You know what's interesting though is that before a lot of these gimmick stuff were done on television. Because remember they had like Raw Roulette. They had They had TLC matches on Raw. They've had Raw done loads of them. Honestly, there could be a whole pod about the amount of special episodes of Monday Night Raw. Especially in that guest host era when they just threw everything out. But anyway, and even AEW, they have a lot of their themed stuff like Blood and Guts. That's on TV. So for fans of whatever company, like there's always going to be gimmicks as part of a show of some kind. Just the fact that WWE really doubled down throughout the kind of mid 2000s to 2020s, early 2020s, and had loads of gimmick pay-per-views. But this always existed. Like TNA, remember they had their one night only strand, which obviously they changed depending on which one it would be, and that was all gimmick stuff. They had the women's ones, they had tag team ones, they had hardcore. No matter what it was, there was a gimmick attached to it. It wasn't just in that special way. It was not the days of talking about Clash, the original kind of Clash of Champions, for example, which were just wrestling cards of varying matches. Sometimes there would be a gimmick saying that, but usually it was just it's a TV special. We're going to give you 2 hours of wrestling. So I don't necessarily think it's a bad thing, but I think it was just the fact that the ones we potentially had were A, very tired, and B, weren't booked correctly for whatever reason you want to say.
They were shoehorned in and not prepared. They were very last minute, and even Survivor Series has been that. It's been one of my gripes about it, and the past 10 years at least. But it's definitely, I think, lately started to be a little bit more refined and made a bit more sense. But hey, that's another conversation for another day, for later on in the year when we get to Survivor Series. But yeah, bringing it back to tonight, Clash at the Castle. What match are you most looking forward to? Is it just simply to see what happens in the Drew one? Because you say you've changed your mind, actually. Let's touch on that first of all. You've changed your mind a little bit on the Damian Priest side of things. You actually think he's going to win now. Why is that?
I think maybe it's just Scotland lost last night in football. But I don't know. I just kind of, the promo kind of writes itself. If he loses and Scotland also lost the same weekend. But then also, I don't know. I just really think, because I haven't mentioned Punk, and they seem to be doing a lot of effort to not mention Punk, he's going to cost him, and that's But then it is, in terms of your question though, what match I'm looking forward to the most. To be honest, it is actually the match between Chad Gable and Sami Zayn, and that'd be a banger of a match. And I don't know. I think it's one of those where annoyingly, it's on this card, potentially the wrong card to do it on, because obviously there's so much effort and emphasis going into his hometown kind of stars and the main event and stuff. And, obviously Zayn's kind of loved. Chad Gable you're not too sure how it could react, but it could be a bang of a match. And I think, and I hope and I pray that Chad Gable leaves with the championship. But the main event in terms of Damian Priest, it is solely because of the Punk thing, where I'm just thinking they haven't really mentioned it, and that's bugging me. Why, and it's a case of they haven't mentioned it because it's happening or because it's not happening.
So, first on the Gable thing, you and Dan went for Gable. I've gone for Gable as well, because I think something needs to change in this feud, and it's either Alpha Academy turn or Gable wins, and I think it should be Gable wins, right? And then Alpha turn eventually and whatever else. Right. So I personally think it's that. And I think, like you say, this is where you can kind of have that moment really, if the Scottish people haven't won and it doesn't become a forgettable PLE and trapped in its own kind of, ethos and whatever. So I do think Gable winning makes sense for the show as well as the storyline. So that's where I'm kind of going with it. Touching on the CM Punk situation, I mentioned it earlier on. Of course, these shows are full of rumors flying around, and all that. CM Punk spotted. Have you seen any of this stuff online already, Lucas?
No. No. What's going on?
So CM Punk got spotted in a, get this, Celtic superstore buying a Celtic shirt. And this isn't something just made up. There's a picture of him holding the Celtic shirt. There is a picture of him in the Celtic shop buying a shirt. Now, Drew McIntyre, famously a Rangers fan, I mentioned it earlier on in the stream. If you're not a football fan, just know they're not friends, those two teams. Let's put it, lightly. So I do think Punk is on the show, in my opinion. He's going to be there. It makes no sense for him to be in Glasgow otherwise. I do have a weird feeling that he's going to show up wearing the Celtic shirt, which I think will play into this kind of, is he the heel in this scenario? Because some people in Glasgow will cheer that and some of them won't. Again, not going to go into too much, but some will and some won't. And, you know, he is the rival to the Rangers representation here with Drew McIntyre, so they can play into that as well. Punk is already a kind of a splitting figure, really, should we say, because of the whole situation in AEW and WWE's past and stuff like that. So him coming into WWE was still one where it was like, how would the fans react? There is still a section of the fan base that just don't like him because of the way things went down in AEW. So he's always going to be able to play into that. Do they want to do it too much? I think it is a risk to do it too much. He is at risk in the UK because of the whole Drew thing, but almost like it kind of plays into their hands if he does wear the Celtic shirt. I'm not predicting whether or not he does, but I do think that will kind of be a great symbol of what he kind of is in this storyline and at this show, because people will react differently to it. So ultimately, I think that Drew will win. I think Punk will get involved, but it might even be that Drew wins and Punk just stands face to face with him at the end of the show. It could just simply be that. But I do think it would be weird if Punk, someone of his stature, came out, didn't successfully cost the heel. That would be a bit weird. But we've also already had that. And Drew's not really 100% going to be a heel in Glasgow, is he? So it's kind of a weird way you work around it, I guess, where he could get involved. And he's like, you know what? Whatever, you know, I didn't cost you, but I'm coming after you now. Or I wanted, he could get there. Drew's annoyed. He watches Drew win and says, it's because I'm coming after you. I want you, you know, like it could be something like that. So,
yeah, I mean, there's so many ways this goes down. But it's another one where, as wrestling fans, have we talked up it up far too much? Punk could appear on the show. There's another option here where Punk appears on the show and gets taken out by another. Remember, the Judgment Day are banned from the match, but aren't banned from anywhere else on the show. There's also the fact that he could just appear in the crowd and watch the match, and there's no interaction between them until, like I said, right after, where they do a stare down. Or Priest wins without involvement from Punk. Priest just wins. There's so many kind of different ways they could go about it. So it is an exciting match because there's so many good ways they could also go about it, you know, so many interesting ways. And there is more story for anyone versus Drew. And obviously, I was hearing, obviously, before I was in the room, I was hearing that you saying about it weird being the I Quit match being, you know, lower down the card or seemingly lower down the card. Again, we have no idea which order they're going to go in. Just saying, they might decide to put Cody on last. I heavily doubt that they would with this match in particular. But that could also be an option. I did say that on the prediction screen. I said that could be an option where Drew loses earlier in the show, and then they send the fans home happy with Cody winning. You know, he's kind of a go-to kind of thing. But yeah, like I think there's so many ways it could happen, which makes it interesting. If that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely. And I think a big factor in this is Damian Priest and the Judgment Day. It's a secondary story, but if it weren't for this being in Scotland, it would be a big part of the story. And, you know, the CM Punk side of things as well. But, you know, there is an argument that Damian sadly is lost in the shuffle. He's got his big moment as champ. But I just think sometimes you need to take the back seat in what's actually going on around you. And he's kind of not the most important factor in this match. It is Drew. And the Punk storyline and stuff like that. And Drew's made reference to that, obviously, in his promos, saying like they're talking about my short reign more than they have yours and whatever else. But I do think Damian Priest winning it, I wouldn't be surprised if he had it for longer. But like it wouldn't be the worst thing if he lost it at the moment anyway. The only problem in that is that he might be perceived as exactly what Drew said he was, which is damaging really to his character as a transitional champion. But there's more they could do after. So
the thing is, the end of my point actually was meant to be, so if they put the I Quit match on last, it would just continue the trend of essentially the World Heavyweight Championship match just never being on last anyway. And,
yeah, true.
You know, and it's been through technically three champions, and it's just never been on last. And so it's a case of, you know, this show has to be the one, surely, where because of the hometown influence and that being the bigger story, that goes on last. And it's the problem with this 2-belt era, because in the old days, you know, your Drew and Damian would be the main event for the WWF Championship. You'd have your IC Championship match. You'd have your Women's Championship match in Bayley. The women's tag, I guess, wouldn't be on. I'm guessing back in those days. Most likely would be the men's tag team belts on the line, and then the I Quit match would be like your blood feud. Whatever blood feud you had going on at the time, that would be that. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Which is another, because again, they're all world championships, aren't they? Really, in the women's are world champion. You know, Bayley, she's a world champion in the women's division. The women's tag are women's world tag team champions. So, apart from the IC championship, every match is a world championship.
World matches, yeah, it's a good point.
Of some caliber.
Yeah.
And one of those, well, three of those, are going to have to suffer from, being buried, by going on before the main event, But yeah, they are redubbing down. There's a lot of Drew stuff, isn't there, on this pre-show?
Yeah, it's tough because if he was a babyface, I think it would be even clearer. Like he's winning. Yeah, but because he's a heel, it just not that he wouldn't get a great reception. Don't get me wrong, but like, I mean, they've acknowledged what happened in Cardiff, and again, at the moment, yeah, cool. What we've got is great. Cody, that was a great moment as well. But at the time, it felt like the wrong decision. And ultimately, people left that stadium feeling disappointed. And I don't think they want to do that again.
Yeah. But it's interesting because obviously if Drew wins, spoke about this again, Dan spoke about this. If Drew wins, then with Punk's involvement somehow, it's going to be weird because it's such a unique thing. Drew will get a massive reaction, obviously, ovation. Bayface pop. Sorry, Punk will obviously get booed. Maybe more mix actually. To be fair, probably still going to be some Punk fans in the house that will cheer him in regards to what he does. But on the whole, it will be a negative reaction from the crowd. But then they have to play this in America with Drew still being the villain and Punk being the babyface because like again, the same thing you mentioned about the Celtic shirts. The Americans aren't going to not going to know who they are. Like, come Raw on Monday, no one was going to know what a Celtic is, and they're going to be like, "Well, he wore a T-shirt." Like, what we don't understand what that means. Yeah. So, are they going to? Okay, because we've all picked Drew. Let's continue down this line, and I think we've all mentioned and touched upon CM Punk existing. Dan and I less so because at the time, obviously, we was unaware that CM Punk had bought this T-shirt and all this kind of stuff going on. But at the moment, we are assuming that CM. I'm going to speak for Dan as well because I'm assuming he'd be the same ilk. If Punk is in Scotland, he's going to be on camera at some point tonight. Yeah, by ringside or whatever. So we have to assume I'm all picking Drew. You're locking in Drew as well for your pick.
I'm locking in Drew. Yeah. Even with the CM Punk thing. So
So we're all tough. So are we going to say that are they going to do a turn where Drew turns babyface, leading towards SummerSlam, or are they going to switch it back to how it was with obviously Drew as the villain and CM Punk as the babyface challenger?
Yeah, I mean, you could do a double turn, especially with the fans. But then, although it will be somewhat confusing to certain fans, it'll be more confusing if they kind of don't go back to their normal roles when they go out to America for others. Because some people will go, it's because they're in Scotland. So there is that as well. I'm starting to think that it will be at the end of the match. Punk will show up at the end of the match. Because then the match will everybody have that relief that has happened. And then Punk will get a massive pop if he shows up because everybody will be excited to see him. And then that will kind of be like everybody will feel relaxed in the sense, that they've already seen their hero win and they don't need to worry about Punk ruining it. Now they can enjoy Punk being there. And I think that is probably where they're going to go with it. That Punk's just going to show up and they'll have a head-to-head or, scrap for a little bit. I don't know. But I do think that because it's got to set up that match eventually anyway, right? And he's going to be there. So I think that makes the most sense. Give Drew the moment and then have Punk show up. It's somewhat like the WrestleMania thing where Drew had the moment and something else happened straight away. But Drew will still be leaving as champ. So you at least have that. So I'm seeing it as Punk is showing up, but it's going to be after the match now.
Yeah. I think that's the best way of a crowd reaction as well, I think. Because, you're right. I think even though he will probably get mixed, it'll be more positive mix, I think, if he's showing up after the match. Because people will always say that.
Because people won't want to cheer. If they see him before and they have that gut feeling of, he might ruin
Like
what I
guy.
also I want to see. Like they might be a bit reserved in cheering for him. You know, the chaos it will create will be fun. But
are we talking up to SummerSlam then, if they're going to do their match, or thinking of the bank even?
I think, well, yeah, it could be one of those where they do several, right? And SummerSlam's the big payoff. Because what's next? Money in the Bank, then SummerSlam, then Bash.
Yeah. And one has to imagine, obviously. Oh, actually, one sec. No, it can't be SummerSlam because King Gunther.
Is that at SummerSlam, that match?
Yeah.
Oh, that's tough then, isn't it?
So it has to be Money in the Bank, or unless they're going to announce, unless they can do it on Raw.
So, Money in the Bank, Punk is...
Then SummerSlam, Gunther is facing the world champion.
I mean, Punk could win it.
Nia Jax is facing Bayley. Well, the winner, sorry. The winner of the Women's World Championship at that time. But I think that'll be interesting, though, because obviously we will get to this eventually, but we're already going to know those two matches. But also, crucially, we know the two Money in the Bank holders as well as the champions. So we have an interesting situation where we've got people who are already number one contenders, but also the Money in the Bank. So that is quite a double. But hard to be a champion, WWE, I think, at that time thing. But okay, so essentially then this Punk match, Drew match, kind of has to happen at Money in the Bank. One would think.
You know, it'd be crazy, right?
Stretch to make
a wild prediction, right? Imagine CM Punk beats Drew McIntyre at Money in the Bank. Drew McIntyre forces his way into the Money in the Bank match, wins it, and then cashes in on CM Punk. Somehow. I don't know how they do it, but that would be crazy.
If they, I guess if they go with, I don't know if there's a Raw in Chicago. Again, this could be another thing. If there's a Raw coming out in Chicago, for example, Punk said he wants a title match then. You put that as the main event of Raw. Punk wins, and then obviously going to Money in the Bank. With Drew winning, and then you cash in the same night potentially. But it's a bit convoluted. But
it is.
We've seen worse.
It could end up that it depends how the chips fall, as they say, because so many kind of variables here, so many different things that could happen. Tonight alone, and where that kind of sprays things into the distance as far as different types of kind of scenarios as well. Let's move away from the CM Punk surprise and let's talk about another possible surprise in Joe Hendry. What are your thoughts on this?
Not a chance.
Do you think?
Pre-show maybe, but that's almost finishing now. Well, saying we're finishing, we've got 40 minutes left. I don't see it personally. I think the fact that they've had the TNA Knockouts champion, Jordan Grace, only go to NXT, and that Matt Hardy, who is rumoured now to be doing the NXT Battle Royal next Tuesday, and again, only NXT, I just don't see them having someone who never worked for them or taken a bump, like showing up on a main roster pay-per-view.
Yeah, it depends in kind of how you look at it, right? Because if you're just in the WWE bubble, it will be very confusing and WWE wouldn't want that, right? But if they want to please people in a way, to be fair, to their credit, they've done in recent years, these random kind of things here and there, it isn't that out of the ordinary. Comparing to like 5 years ago, 10 years ago, it would be no chance. There is still a possibility because I mentioned before you came on the air, the buzz he's created in TNA with his character, in getting into the top 10 UK singles charts, the posters. Have you seen those billboards around Glasgow at the moment as well? Things like that. He trained with an Italian the other day. So there are all these things that kind of point towards it. And if he's not doing it, then milk the situation for all you can. I think it's fantastic.
I thought last night would have been a better time to do it anyway on TV.
That's a good point. Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, it's similar to...
I'll be very surprised. I'll be very happy for him if he's able to do that, that deal. But I think even looking back to AEW of All In, they had Grado on the pre-show.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Yeah, it was the pre-show. But you know what? All right, he's not... bear with me here. He's not Tyson Fury. But what if he played a Tyson Fury role in this main event in that Punk costs Drew, but they get their other hometown hero in, Joe Hendry, kind of looking good instead.
See,
I mean, it's kind of far-fetched, don't get me wrong.
I think they'd have to introduce him already to the audience somehow.
Yeah.
So no matter whether it was, again, that would have been where Last Night could have come into play.
Or be bringing him in properly.
I'm trying to think, like, when they had, like, Jelly Roll, for example, on Raw, like, I'm literally remembering the random things at the moment. They had Jelly Roll on Raw. They announced on social media the day of the show. They then showed him arriving. There's like a package almost they give these people.
Yeah.
They're actually now spotlighting William Regal on the pre-show. Props to that. Thank you very much, WWE.
You saw a bit of giant haystacks there as well. Didn't expect to see that.
But yeah, he's talking about, I guess, Asian Street as well. But anyway, sorry. Yeah, like you do get, like, they do a little package, don't they, for these people, no matter who they are. And so, yeah, fair enough, the celebrities are thing, but I think I liken it to them because it's a case of you've still got someone coming from outside of the WWE world into your world, so you have to introduce them somehow. So that's what I said. You do the whole social media post early on the day, say they're going to be there, then you show them around to the arena or interacting with your other superstars.
But then that takes away the surprise, right? And it's tough because usually you're like, well, if it's a surprise, that means he's coming into it, like, good as the Destiny have done that now with the Bloodline, for example. But it's not like they didn't bring Jordan Grace into the Royal Rumble. I know it's the Royal Rumble and it's different, but they've something's going on with TNA, right? And you say it's only seemingly at the moment on an NXT level, but it wouldn't be as out of the ordinary again as it would be 5 or 10 years ago. Ultimately, do I think it's going to happen? I'm leaning more towards no, but I don't think it's impossible.
Yeah, I think it's good for fans to kind of dream with this stuff, but I just don't see it. I think it's a bit of a jump. I think obviously. I think it's not going to happen personally. I think people are hoping that it might because obviously that door's somewhat open and you've got the Forbidden Door stuff happening in AEW and stuff. I think the WWE will be much more careful with it. But then saying that, one of the criticisms I've had of Triple H, which is booking, is the fact that he loves a bit of a random appearance, doesn't he?
Yeah.
I don't know what Ego thinks in his head is the image, but it's very different when it comes out. Like when Karrion Kross came back and like beat up Drew McIntyre, like really ran and was feuding with Drew McIntyre for like 3 months, and no one was giving him a reaction because in Triple H's head it was, this guy on NXT was amazing.
Yeah.
But if you're a casual Raw viewer, you're like, well, that's a guy who came out in not safe for work gear. You're not safe for work gear, twice on Raw and lost Jeff Hardy in like 3 minutes. And the same thing when he brought back Kylie Sang, Saudi. It was just like she just appeared, and then another trope that I hate, which it isn't Triple H's trope. It happened even before when the announcers just refused to remember someone, like for ages. Because they're like, who is that? Oh,
yeah. Is that who I think it is? Yeah, it is.
Like who it is. Like you worked with them for like 10 years before.
yeah. What's your name again? Look, I do think there are some other ways they could shoehorn. I say shoehorn, but it'd still be very welcome. So maybe I shouldn't use that term. But Joe Hendry into the show, right? He could be number one in a backstage segment where he does the little twist and turn around, for example, right? Somebody's taps him on the shoulder or whatever it is, the kind of stuff we used to get back in the day with my guy here, Rowdy Roddy Piper, Dusty Rose, and IRS would be doing some random thing backstage with R-Truth. It's that kind of, I could see something like that, a little backstage skit, or I could see, weirdly enough, that they've let him do a song about the main event or something like that, because although you're not bringing him in as a wrestler, then you could literally say, and they love this stuff, this guy had a top 10 UK singles hit.
Yeah.
And they're milking that rather than the TNA side of things. So they could show.
I still think they'd announce it though.
I don't know. I think it's a surprise though. The surprise is what.
Even if it was close to the time, even if it was announced on this pre-show, I think they'd have to announce beforehand. Because even when they had Mania and they have the national anthem and stuff, American Beautiful. No, I mean,
I'd love it if Joe Hendry did, Flower of Scotland. I was like,
well, what anthem would he do though? That'd be weird. Because it have to be Scottish.
Yeah, well, I think he could just do one about the whole show. Like he's that kind. He's very funny. If anyone's ever seen it, and Drew referenced this a little while ago in Cultaholic, where he, was basically bigging up Hendry and the song he made about him back, years ago in ICW. So if you haven't seen this kind of work, I do recommend it, even if he doesn't show up tonight. But that's the kind of thing you could do. He's a very talented man, very talented songwriter.
I mean, also, as well, just touching upon it, as the rain has just started here again for the 15th time today. I don't know how it's been where you are. But a reminder to people that today's the reason why we don't do outdoor events in the summer, sadly. People that are hoping going on about it should be in a stadium or it should be blah blah. Like
even their kickoff show, I was surprised, but it makes sense. It was in an arena. They're usually outdoors in like the car park next to the arena, isn't it?
I mean, we are sadly having a very tragic summer this year so far, aren't we?
Yeah, we are.
It's not happened. But yeah, this sadly is a reason. But also, I mean, we touched on it now. We did mention it obviously on our prediction with Dan. There's obviously a lot of people had difficulty getting tickets to this event and the ticket pricing. And obviously, again, one of the main events came is crossed is like they should have done a stadium or bigger arena or gone down south or gone wherever. Yeah. But there's a lot of things, obviously, a lot of factors that maybe went into this decision. Always not saying I agree with a lot of them. I do think that like some of the ticket prices are crazy. But when we look at the larger events market, it is sadly it is quite similar. People are paying hundreds of pounds. You don't know, you saw the clip about Taylor Swift's gig, where people were happy that she sells like restricted view seats like behind the stage, and people were happy that that she waved at them when she walked off, and people acting like that's amazing. But it's just one of those things where it's a shame. Like I don't know what's happened to events because it just seemed like even like years ago being able to get tickets for even TV like Raw and SmackDown, too. For decent price.
The thing is, you slap a PLE and some branding on it, it changes a lot. Number two is, we got to be honest, WWE's hotter than it's been in a long time. It's a hotter ticket than it once was. I mean, even the last Clash, tickets were very expensive and then they started to drop them. But it's one of those where if they did it like AEW and they said, look, we're coming back next August, they'd probably sell out any stadium in the UK, right? But that was my gripe with this. It was announced and it was like, it's happening soon. And like, look, if you're unfamiliar with how the UK's rail fares are, let me just tell you, they ain't cheap, and it's a real problem. And getting to Scotland isn't something you can just decide to do on a whim, right? So maybe I have to just step back here and be like, I don't want to be condescending, right? But like, let this be the Scottish guys. Like, let the Scots have this one. Like, we don't need, just because it's technically still within our country, we don't need to go all the way up there. Let them have that, But at the same time, there are people like you traveling into Germany. There are people coming into London. There are people, I'm sure, from, around Puerto Rico, not necessarily in Puerto Rico, going to Puerto Rico as well. So it is kind of not just about the place they're in. Yeah. But I think this helps it be more that it is just.
I love the Cardiff day. I know you were there for a few days, weren't you? I think, Scott.
Yeah.
I love that day personally. Honestly, it is within like my top 5 days of ever existing on this planet. Like it was.
Like I say, I was there for a few days, and it's one of my favorite periods. One of my favorite trips away. Cardiff was amazing. It was everything about it was great.
Yeah, no, it was truly fantastic, and I think that. Part of, and that's again what's made me go back. Mind the bank for me is handy. I can see the O2 pretty much. But I'm looking forward to going to Berlin and seeing what that's like. I like the city. I've been to Berlin already, by the way. Really like the city, and it'd be good just to go and experience that differentness. And I guess nowadays, what's good is obviously before, as wrestling fans, like a big show basically over here, we had to basically go to WrestleMania. That was it, and we're now in a situation really where, I've been invited by friends to go to Vegas next year for Mania, and I've turned it down, just because I'm just of the ilk of I'm going to do Bash in Berlin. Like I don't really see a reason to leave Europe to go and watch it because
it does make it a little easier now. Yeah,
if they copycat this year to next year, even if it's like exactly, I would know. Okay, I can go to France for Backlash. I go to Germany in the summer. Or I could go to, if they announce another one further down the line, maybe do Scotland again, maybe do Wales, maybe do England. There'd be something they might do up north potentially next year. Do you know what I mean? Like Manchester or Not the Co-op Arena, though, please. Not the Co-op Arena.
Oh, yeah, that's not really worked out, is it? But look, I do think spreading it out would be better for a lot of fans. They would feel like it's more accessible, or they can plan a bit better. But as we said earlier on, like, it's the hot ticket. People will go. They will pay the money. Why are they going to bother giving people who want more notice, or who want cheaper tickets? The only way where it would benefit them really is if they did it in a stadium. They gave themselves more time. They lowered the price in there because you had a big range of tickets to sell as well, where I do think it kind of works in both favors. But to be fair, we said the same thing about Cardiff. The difference with Cardiff, though, it was a lot easier to get to Cardiff. You can get a mega bus from London and it will get you a lot quicker and a lot cheaper.
And the atmosphere on those coaches was so good as well. Like, yeah, I mean, obviously, yeah, it's just such a good day. I can't, you know, I wish I vlogged it or something. But then also, I wish I didn't, I guess, in a way, because it was one of those days where I had so many unique interactions with different people that I think having a camera and walking around and following me would have kind of slowed it down a bit. Because it was genuine, like when I was walking down like Cardiff, the main like high street, where I bumped into, you know, people I haven't seen. People, I mean, I went to, I don't know if you remember the Coventry super shows we had back
I do remember those,
yeah, I bumped into people literally. I
really
behind at that event like 15 years ago.
Those like uprising events and all that.
Yeah. Like, FWA fans were there.
Yeah.
Like, I bumped into so many people that I know, obviously through like, you know, Dropkick, Digger, DW, and through like, and you know, just genuinely, just like everyone was just loving it so much. And again, coming at the time it was coming, obviously we had a very, 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 very like scary period with obviously the lockdown and stuff. And there was a long time where wrestling fans or fans of anything really couldn't get together. And this was like a big thing, wasn't it? And we're coming together, you know, 50,000 wrestling fans, or, you know, 60,000, whatever it was. Oh my God, is that a Sam, man? Oh my God.
Not on the actual pre-show, by the way, guys, just an ad. Sandman hasn't rocked up with a kendo stick. He's not coming out to the Sandman as we speak.
He shows up. But you know what I mean? Like, I just think, it was such a great vibe. And I think so nowadays, like as European wrestling fans, I guess, we've got that choice now. We haven't got to do the Mecca. Obviously, many will. And look, if people want to do that, that is absolutely fine. But you know, someone like myself, I'm not the biggest fan of America, and you know, I don't. If I can have not go, I would rather not go to it. And that's me. Some people are, and that's fine. But for me, it's a case of, look, I'd rather just spend the money going like elsewhere on like another holiday. As obviously it's a lot of money. I think you've been to Mania yourself, haven't you? Sure.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's kind of like you said. That's how I've seen Mania, is because I, you know, big fan of certain things in America and enjoyed my trips to certain states, and it gives me an opportunity to see more places. But like you say, now we have the opportunity over here in Europe as well. As much as I'm from Europe and I can get to a lot of these places anyway, it gives you a second reason to go. And a lot of these places will know that. You know, I had never been to Cardiff. Most of the people I spoke to, as you say, talking about it, like catching up with people, they were like, I've never been here either, but isn't it great? Like, and it makes you want to go back. So you understand why these cities are bidding for these shows, and they're the ones that are more likely to get it now. Like Lyon was because Paris didn't need it. Like, you know, so you know, exactly. Yeah, got the Olympics as well very soon. But yeah, I agree with you. It gives us an opportunity to go to different places and like, look, of course, there's a big part of me wishing I was at Clash today, right? It was difficult for us to kind of figure out time-wise and other commitments and stuff like that. It is a shame. And part of me earlier on was thinking I could have been to two of the Clashes. I could have had a streak there. I could have gone to every Clash because they're probably mostly going to be in Europe, right? So even if there's only two more, like, it's probably going to be in Europe, as we were saying earlier on with castles and whatever else, if they stick to the theme like that. So part of me was like, oh no, I've lost out already, because we don't really look. I'm privileged enough to have been to 3 WrestleManias, right? But that's quite a lot for someone from the UK. It's not common that people from the UK get to go, right? Yes, a lot of people from the UK. There's always a UK presence. Don't get me wrong. But not all wrestling fans from the UK ever even get to dream of going to America for a show. So to have that opportunity now in Europe makes it a lot easier for us to kind of start collecting these shows together in our own kind of...
Also, as well, we have to remember that there are still potential people who travel for medical or health reasons isn't going to be possible. You know, plane travel or long-haul flights, possible, and they were a happy wrestling fan. This goes for all events as well, which is why events, again, there's a lot of criticisms about events going where they go, and why events have to become global now, because you're just going to keep having a section of the fan base that I'll be like, we would go, but we can't do a long haul flight. you know, we can't
Good
do
point.
it because again, it is, you know, if people are disabled, you know, because of that as well. Like there's a lot of people who won't feel comfortable maybe doing it as well. So that you got to be, and again with the world we're in at the moment, especially post like pandemic, there are people who don't want to travel as far. So there's like so many different things and factors that go into it.
Yeah.
But I think for me, it's a case of I like going to like the different places. That's what I like now about going to wrestling shows. I think it's all part of it's seeing how this thing, which, you know, for most of my kind of childhood and teenage years was just something I watched on the telly, you know, and talked about at school with my small group of mates, is now a global force where I can tie it in with, I'll go over to Berlin and check out some of the museums, and, you know, I'll go over to France and maybe have a day in Paris, or do a couple of theme parks around Paris and then go to Lyon. You know, I can tie that in with other hobbies, other interests, and know that when you get there, there are people who, like us, grew up literally watching it potentially on, like, because you always find the English wrestling fans as well. Like no matter where you go, like obviously, yes, I know Cardiff was still in the UK, but I was regularly bumping into people from London, Essex, the South East constantly.
Yeah.
Do you always bump into someone from Newcastle as well?
There's always good rep from Newcastle, I will say.
Like loads. Like they must have like some sort of cheap coat or something.
Yeah.
Every event I go to,
there should be a fair few to Glasgow. You know, it's a lot closer to Glasgow than we are, so I'd imagine there's a good Geordie representation up there now as well. But
always bump into usually lovely people, even on the hard days as well. Like when in Dubai, bump into Geordie couple. Like I'm just like walking around.
They like to travel. They like to get out, don't they? Yeah.
But yeah, no, I think it's a great thing. And obviously, I think the only thing that, again, going back to your point earlier about, is they have got to start potentially looking at making these cards a bit bigger next year. As I think they sell out and do really well based off the novelty. But I do think next year and going forwards, and that's why, for me, it's interesting what they will do. Like, will they keep with these names? Will they... Because at the moment, they're one-off events to an extent, you know, and we don't want that. We want events that are part of the lineage, that matter. Like I said, Money in the Bank, because Roman getting pinned on Money in the Bank, that is instantly a rewatchable event. Yeah. And if the
and people having a briefcase matters as well. So
you know, because even if you just only do, you know, now it is harder because so many matches. But even if you are on like a Money in the Bank rewatching, they are two very good Money in the Bank ladder matches. Yeah, and you know they will come on people's rewatching quite easily, and so people will at least have acknowledged, okay, that happened, kind of thing. But I think, you know, something like a Backlash France, as much as that crowd can be remembered. You know, like and obviously there was the 5-star match of AJ and Cody. It's a case of the rest of the card was very by the numbers and very like, okay, you know.
Yeah, I mean, they've all been enjoyable because they are special in their own way. They're different. They've got that kind of gimmick, as we say. But if we're honest, I think if we're going to rank them, like just quickly, these international ones, if I can remember them off the top of my head, maybe biased because I was there, but Clash is top for me because I just loved it. I really enjoyed the Puerto Rican Backlash. Money in the Bank, obviously, maybe a bit biased because we're there as well. But then the lower ones are Backlash in Lyon, which again was a good show, but I think it was one of the weaker ones. And Elimination Chamber is probably the most disappointing one out of all. But again, still a good show. Still kind of got us to where we need to go in some of the storylines. But those are the ones that I feel have kind of suffered a bit more from this potential risk that we've been talking about really throughout the stream, about kind of something wearing off and not being if you will. I totally
forgot about Australia and that, so I think that kind of says a lot about what I felt about Chamber. I did feel it was a bit subpar personally. But again, another interesting one with that, the only match I can give it to tonight is the fact that you had Rhea Ripley, the villain, going in, but obviously in her hometown they made her a babyface, gave her the babyface pop. So is that kind of where we're going tonight with this? You know,
I mean, isn't it mad that all of them, all the Scottish wrestlers are heels? They're featuring 4, and they're all heels. It's kind of like great that they've managed to have that many on the roster and in prominent positions where it doesn't feel too shoehorned in. But unfortunate timing for some of them, because surely they would have liked to have at least had one Scottish babyface, but. You know, it wasn't to be.
Yeah, no, I mean, but we shall see. I mean, I've got to shoot very shortly. I've got to eat before we do this. My iPad's going to die, but obviously we are going to have an instant reaction, aren't we? I believe from this.
We are indeed. We'll be back straight after the stream, the WWE stream at least ends. We'll be letting you know what we thought of the show. We'd love it if you would join us as well. We'll be breaking down each and every one of the 5 matches. Before we do get out of here, let's have a quick run through of what they are. Of course, we've got Piper Niven going up against WWE Women's Champion Bayley. Will she be the first Scottish-born women's champion in WWE? We'll have to wait and see. Will the title be changing between Gable and Sami Zayn? It could be an opportunity really to knuckle down on this storyline that's already been quite an interesting one, but I do think it needs a little bit of a twist and a turn on this show. Speaking of which, I don't think we'll get too much twisting and turning with Cody Rhodes and his title, because I think AJ Styles is here as a placeholder. As much as this storyline has been quite entertaining, and so was the last match, I do think this one is probably set in stone. Triple threat tag title match possibility here, of course, as we've been saying, that the titles do change hands, and surely the champions themselves are going to go into some sort of feud against each other, but that might be later down the line at SummerSlam. So this could be an opportunity to protect them, but also protect these Scottish wrestlers by having Baszler and Stark take the pin. We'll have to see how that goes. But the main event that we've been touching on throughout the night, of course, is Damian Priest and Drew McIntyre, where it seems like most of us are kind of still somewhat on the fence, even if we've committed. It does seem like we're all going for Drew McIntyre. We're locked in with that. If Lucas could have changed, he thinks he might have changed to Priest. We've got the scenario of CM Punk. We've got the scenario of Judgment Day. That's what these things are all about. Look, guys, a double counter. There we go. We are shaping up here for Clash at the Castle. It's going to begin in just 19 minutes. The countdown to Clash is still going on WWE's network and their social media channels as well. We appreciate you joining us on ours, though. We are the Rebellious Noise Pro Wrestling channel. I've been Scott. This one's been Lucas. And we've been running down, of course, with Dan earlier on the replay as well, what we think is going to happen tonight. If you haven't already, let us know in the comments what you think is going to happen. And please join us again after the show goes off the air for the instant reaction, where we will be breaking down again every single one of those matches and talk about what it means for the future as well. Thank you very much for joining us, Lucas. Thank you very much for joining us, everybody, whether it's been on YouTube or Twitter or on Twitch. We really do appreciate you. And we're going to see you in a few hours when we're talking maybe about a successful Drew McIntyre performance. We'll see you later.
Welcome to the Rebellious Noise Pro Wrestling channel. On this channel, we bring you some great content from inside and outside of the squared circle. We will go through and offer some in-depth analysis of the biggest events of the year, as well as bringing you exclusive interviews with some of the industry's biggest names. There will also be live show reviews, in-depth features, and podcasts. So make sure you give that subscribe button a slam so you don't miss any of the action.